All right, and we're live. And you've listened to the show enough to know that I don't have a script. I don't have questions written out.
Sure.
Because I think sometimes less is more, right? The more you overthink it, the less authentic it feels.
Right.
And I have been really enjoying the structure of the show, just being two human beings talking. The more it's grounded in reality, the better we connect with listeners, you know?
Absolutely.
And so, today's episode is Adam Carbary, who is, over the last couple of years, you've really taken your life on this new trajectory. And it's cool. It's going to be cool to talk about all that stuff, but specifically the breath work is something you've really delved into over the last, what would you say, year or so?
So I really went hardcore into breath work starting last December after meeting my teacher. But I first discovered breath work back in 2018 when I went to Peru. And that was when I knew the power of the breath.
Got it. Okay. Well, and you just presented me with a crystal.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about this?
So that is a quartz crystal. But what's most people don't know is that not every quartz crystal is exactly the same. So they all have slight different variations. They come from different areas of the world. So they're energetically going to carry a different signature.
Okay.
I think of crystals, yes, they're beautiful. They're cool to look at. But if you think about it from the form of a technology standpoint, every piece of technology that we use utilizes quartz crystals because it is a conductor of electricity. So, and electricity is just energy. Energy is information, and information is stored within crystals. So that particular crystal is called a Lumerian seed crystal. And so they have slight kind of ghost lines that go horizontally throughout the crystals. And that's an easy way to decipher what it looks like. So those carry information, and, some people may think of this as woo-woo or whatever, but if you're tapped into it, you can pull things from it. And so I brought that crystal specifically out of my collection, which if I remember correctly, that one came from Sedona. I was doing a meditation the other morning, and I have this kind of cabinet within our bus that has all of my favorite crystals within it. And that one was in that cabinet. 5 minutes into my meditation, it showed me here in this moment, you holding it.
Wow.
So I knew in that moment, like, it's no longer mine. It doesn't want to be with me anymore. It has information for you.
No, I like it. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. So with the quartz, is this, because I'm just getting into crystals.
Yeah.
They charge their own energy differently. Some get charged by the moon. Some get charged by the sun. Some don't want to be in the water.
Right.
I've heard. So what are the properties of this one that I should know as its new owner?
So quartz crystal in general, and this applies to any type of quartz crystal, it's a natural amplifier. So it's going to amplify its own energy, but it also amplifies and transmute energy from other things, including intention. And that's the best way to work with crystals. It's intention based. You work with it as a tool I use them a lot of times in meditation as well as in healing practices with people. Quartz will amplify your intention. So if you go into a meditation or a ceremony and you have a specific intention that you want help with, you can hold that crystal in your hand and think with your mind. Every breath that you take, you're embedding that breath and that intention into that crystal. Then when you bring that with you into your ceremony or into your sauna or into your cold plunge or into your meditation, whatever your practice is, it will naturally amplify the energy behind that intention.
Okay. Now it's funny we're talking about this. I just got back from Kalispell where I did the Cleared Hot podcast with Andy Stump. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not.
I'm not, no.
So in the podcasting world, Andy is like royalty.
Okay.
He's not on Rogan's level, but him and Rogan are homies and they bounce back and forth between each other's shows and whatnot. And we were talking about how I was told by an orthopedic surgeon, and it would have been 2018 or 2019, that I needed a full knee replacement. And I was like, you know what? There's something about this that just feels off. I was 38 at the time. And if you look at what a full knee replacement can do, they're good for 10 to 15 years based on the current technology that we have. And then it starts to degrade again. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you know what? Technology is always improving. Our medical field is always doing new studies and figuring out how to make advancements. I'm going to ride this out as long as I physically can and deal with the pain. And then if I can ride it out for another 5 or 8 years, I'm hoping that I'll be able to get that much better of an outcome from a surgery because the advancements made in the medical technology. But because I knew, okay, Western medicine is saying I need this, in the meantime, let's focus on some other things. That's why I really started looking into heat therapy, cold therapy. And then the list then you just jump off the cliff and dive into the rabbit hole of cannabinoids and CBDs and rubs and smoking cannabis and all kinds of like deep tissue work with the theraguns and the different salves and stuff. And I was telling him, he goes, fuck, bro, the next thing you're going to tell me is you put crystals on it. And I said, funny you should say that because check it out. And Jenny, I mean, you can look over there. You see her little crystal collection that she puts there so it can get the sun throughout the day. I started laying these different healing crystals on my knees. And then I would allow that to like put the right kind of energy into my knee. And I told Andy, I said, look, bro, I'm wearing an amber bracelet as we speak because I was told that amber helps with inflammation and healing and bringing the right energy into your body. And he laughs. He goes, that's it, bro. I'm getting you your own fucking tinfoil hat. And I said, we can laugh about this stuff. And here's the truth. This is the absolute my truth. Like, I don't know what the crystal is going to do to my body. I don't know what this amber is going to do to my body. But what I do know, I'm 100% healed and I did it on my own. And my knee is the best it's ever been. So you can say all of that shit might not do anything. And maybe it's just the power of the mind. Is that possible?
100%.
Because the truth is I am no longer in pain. And I've had other doctors look at my knee and they're like, dude, you're fine. So you can say whatever you want about looking into ulterior motives or methods of healing yourself. But if I can fucking meditate and put a crystal on my knee and either use the energy from that specific item, or maybe that's just a catalyst to amplify my own mind to be able to heal it with my own power. I'm open to anything and everything now.
Yeah.
And here's the weird thing, man. Like, because Western medicine has made so many advancements in the last 200 years, people have forgot about Eastern medicine. And I don't think these things are mutually exclusive, right? If I get in a car wreck and my leg gets severed, I'm fucking stoked that there's a helicopter that's going to fly me to Harborview. They're going to stop the bleeding and they're going to save my life.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
But just because Western medicine has made some huge advancements doesn't mean that Chinese medicine, that meditation, different. I told you I've been listening to these healing frequencies in my sauna every morning. All that shit could be just as real too. You know?
So I know previously when we were having a conversation, what was it, last weekend or the weekend before grandfather's birthday, Nikola Tesla, and if you guys aren't familiar with Nikola Tesla, he was a genius in his time, but before his time, which is why his technologies didn't really see the light of day. But he had a quote that said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in the terms of energy, frequency, and vibration.
Well, there you go.
And so what if our reality is created just off of energy, frequency, and vibration? And if we can get into alignment with a certain energy or a certain frequency or a certain vibration that then helps us put in more alignment with our natural state of healing, our body's natural abilities. And you know, there's this huge thought process in the spiritual community of I just am walking around in this meat sack and, you know, this body is just like my meat suit. And I've heard Joe Rogan even talk about, you know, the body just being this thing that we're walking around in, but it's not truly who we are. But that is undermining the absolute magical power our body has. Our bodies are walking quantum computers. Mm-hmm. They literally can heal themselves just with thought alone. With food, with water, with exercise, like all of these things that our body can do and all of these various different functions that our body takes care of us every day that we don't even think about.
Yeah.
And yet we just call it this little meat suit. Like, it's way above and beyond what we give its power for. And I think that's one of the things that like society has trained us, is that we don't have this massive power. Only certain people have this power.
Only 10% of your brain works.
Exactly. Well, what if only 10% of your brain works because we were told only 10% of your brain works?
Or 10% of your brain works in this physical realm that we are kind of trapped in currently.
Right.
But maybe the other 90% is for connecting spiritually, like meditation. And the interesting thing, I've been reading a lot lately, the science is starting to support all of these things, like the power of prayer, right? Mm-hmm. So your prayer can be based in a specific religion, or maybe just a spirituality or whatever it is. But when enough people put intentions into something, it changes the outcome.
Absolutely.
They're starting to accumulate data proving that, or the ability to, or they're finding that meditation, they're doing meditations in conjunctions with MRI, and they're finding that it makes you develop a massive amount of neuroplasticity in your prefrontal cortex.
Right.
That part of your brain is responsible for logic, emotion, love, decision making. And like, okay, well, if it's responsible for all those things, the more you meditate, basically, the more well-rounded human being you're going to be when it comes time to confront things or decipher things or make decisions. And it's like, okay, all of this stuff is not woo-woo. This stuff is rooted in science, because a lot of people, including especially me over the last 24 months, you feel the spiritual side of things.
Oh,
there's something happening that's bigger than our meat suit. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, a lot of people, especially in the Western world, they want data. They want to be able to see things. And it's just like, we've been able to prove that simply observing something can change the outcome.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay, so all these little things that we're finding, this is no longer some crazy theory. We're somehow intertwined in this spiritual realm or this energy realm, and we can influence it.
Right.
So to not dive down that rabbit hole and figure out what it's all about, like, you're fucking yourself.
Oh, 100%.
The book that I'm reading now, The Urban Monk, it talked about a lot of the same stuff about how meditation is proven to be able to benefit you on a lot of different areas of your life. And he said one of the best areas to meditate is by a moving body of water where everything else is silent. And I was like, well, I bought property with a river, so I got a little meditation pad.
Yep.
And said, try and sit next to your river with your eyes closed, just taking in the environment and being present for 1 hour. Americans don't do that shit anymore.
No.
So I'm excited to be on this new trajectory and to learn about myself, learn about the world, learn about energy. And if you think that it's woo-woo and you think that it's crazy, I think what you're doing is you're keeping yourself trapped and you're thinking small. And especially, we talked about it last weekend when we were talking about how I've come from a very different background than you.
Yeah.
My youth was involved trying to kill other human beings, trying to get as fit as I possibly could, taking cage fights to hone my physical body, really focusing on jiu-jitsu and lifting weights. And it's just, our trajectories of life have been very different, but somehow they're leading us to the same conclusion. So that's not my chance.
No, I mean, we are all, at the end of the day, we're just all walking each other home. Right? We all come from the same universal consciousness. We all come from the same one mind, God, universe, source, whatever name you want to put on it. We are all that. And when we start to develop this perspective of seeing that spark in every person that you meet, recognizing that every person that you interact with on a day-to-day basis, whether it's throughout the entirety of the day via your close family, or if it's just one person that you meet at the gas station that you just say hi to, that's still you.
Yeah.
And when you have that perspective, you recognize that that person that just cut you off on the freeway, they might be being an asshole, but they might be rushing to the hospital because their wife is having birth to their very firstborn. Either way, it's still you. So when we have that grace towards our fellow person, no matter what they're going through, but also recognizing that we don't know what somebody's going through in every moment, because a lot of us bottle it up.
Yeah.
A lot of us don't reflect out into our reality what our inner reality actually looks like, but that also whatever our inner reality looks like is automatically reflected on our outer reality.
Yeah. No, and it's funny you say that, because like I remember I have a very specific incident. You've seen the scar on Siler's foot, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's my oldest daughter. When she was 3 years old, and this is shitty parenting, right? But I was doing a job and I had my knife next to me, and my 3-year-old daughter walked over and picked up my knife and stuck it right in her foot and sliced it open, like before I could do anything. And I was like, fuck, dude. And it started bleeding at like, not arterial. It wasn't spurting, but it was coming out fast. And it's your 3-year-old daughter. So that's terrifying.
Traumatic.
So I wrap it up. I apply pressure. Jenny, hold this here. Threw her in the Forerunner, mobbing to the hospital. And I was passing people. And then someone tried to prevent me from passing them and was like trying to cut me off. And then as I was trying to pass them, they would speed up. And then if I tried to slow down, they'd slow down. And it's like, I remember thinking about that, because I've had plenty of road rage incidents where someone was driving erratically and it pissed me off. Here I am, the one driving erratically.
Right.
But I'm doing this
Purpose.
out of a need and out of trying to help someone. And it was a good lesson for me, because it's like, okay, you don't know what that other person is going through, you know? And, it's interesting how all this is coming together. I just finished another book called Meditations, written by Marcus Aurelius. Mm. And because of what his teachings in his book, and for anyone that is not familiar with that book,
you need to read it.
I think every human being on planet Earth should read it.
Yeah.
And he said it's one of the most important lessons for humanity to realize is that there is no good and bad. There's only circumstance. And so even if it's your child dying, the good or bad in that is all in your perception.
Right.
That is a circumstance that occurred. Now, how do you perceive it as an individual and work through it? And because of that, my goal for the month of September is not to get angry one time. And so we'll see where this goes. But I just want to be in control of myself.
So there is, great respect for attempting that. But the reality is we have to feel the full spectrum of our emotions. And that's what my breathwork practice has really taught me, is that when we stop ourselves from feeling every emotion, not just one specific, but every emotion, we limit the spectrum in which we see life and feel life. And
so would a healthier version of it be feel the emotions but control it?
Yes.
Because the thing is, like, I am hardwired aggressive, and I'm like default aggressive. And to go back to the cutting you off thing, or if people are riding my ass, right? If they're like, I'm on the freeway and they're 10 feet off my bumper, I'm like, you motherfucker, dude, like, what's your problem? You know? And, maybe trying to antagonize something or whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, there's a good chance I'm putting a bunch of negative energy into something. It might be a 17-year-old girl that's looking at her TikTok and is just not aware of her surroundings.
Right.
And so it goes back to what I said, like, it's not good or bad. It's how I perceive it. I'm perceiving it in a negative manner. So then it's causing anger.
It's also taking it personal.
Yeah, very true.
And that's, I think, one of the biggest underlying things where most people have a unwanted reaction, emotional reaction to a situation, is because they're taking it personal, when most of the time it's just people being flat out unaware.
Yeah,
they're not only unaware of their surroundings, but most of the time they're unaware of themselves because they've never stopped to open the book of self and read a fucking chapter.
Yeah. No, it's crazy that it's taken me 42 years to arrive at this place.
Better than 82.
Yeah. I've had enough circumstances where it's like, I'm ready to fight this guy because of his behavior. And then I'm able to get up next to his car and look in. And it's a 70-year-old woman with like those blue blocker sunglasses on, 10 and 2, looking straight ahead, and doesn't even know that that her actions are causing a reaction outside of her car.
Right.
And it's like, fuck, dude. Like, this is all you.
Yeah.
You built this fucking story in your head that this is some cocksucker trying to push your buttons or trying to piss you off. And that's nothing could be further from the truth.
Well, and that just goes to show like what the subconscious has control over.
Yeah.
Right? Because, and a lot of this is all subconscious programming. It's programming from, so there are periods in our life that there's this philosophy, and I can't remember where I read it, but there's 7-year groupings through our life. So from 0 to 7, that's when we're basically absorbing everything from our outside environment to get as much information of where we come from as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Then from 7 to 14, we spend that time period of going more inside, taking all of that information that we just accepted from 0 to 7, and now creating our personality and who we want to be in the world. Then from 14 to 7, we go back out, and that's when we're able to start driving, we can vote, we can drink. So we start experiencing more outside of our world. Then from 21 to 28, we go back internally.
Okay.
And start to, okay, now I've had some life experience. Now, you know, I've hopefully by that point in time gotten laid and really, you know, kind of really started to dabble into what life has to truly offer.
Yeah.
But now you're like, oh, fuck, I'm 25 and I have no idea who I am or what I want to do with life or where I'm going. And I think a lot of us tend to hit that period of time and really start to look at, okay, what am I doing? Where am I going?
Yeah.
And I know that's how my journey went. And part of that's from my mom told me early on, she's like, you know, you're going to turn 16, you're going to get your driver's license, and you think you own the world. You think you know everything. Then you'll turn 18 and you'll be able to vote and smoke cigarettes and be more of an adult and realize, okay, I know now a little more than I did when 16. And I kind of recognize that I didn't know as much as I thought I did. And then you turn 21 and you're able to drink and you're able to start experiencing a lot more. And again, you're going to realize that, oh shit, okay, now I have more experience. And now I feel like I know a little bit more. And then she's like, you're going to turn 25 and realize you don't know a fucking thing.
Dude, good advice.
And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
I turned 25 and got out of a relationship that I thought was going to be the one. The girl I brought to your and Jenny's wedding, I thought she was going to be the one that I was going to spend the rest of my life with. Come to find out, she was cheating on me with a guy that she worked at the bar with.
Was she the one that thought my cauliflower ear would be contagious?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, for people that are wondering what the fuck I'm talking about, she saw my cauliflower ear and remember it was like, what is that from? It's like, it's from fighting. And then I don't know if she said it to me or pulled you aside.
Yeah.
It's like, can I catch that?
Yeah. She was worried about giving a hug and that if her ear touched your ear, that she would get the cauliflower ear. And it's like, no, it doesn't work like that.
You can't be so lucky. You got to put a lot of work in before you get those.
So, but like through that experience, I mean, that shattered me. Like that completely changed my reality and what I thought about a relationship. And I thought I had this awesome relationship. And yet, obviously, either I wasn't showing up enough or something wasn't satisfactory.
Or maybe your frequencies just weren't congruent.
Well, and now that is exactly what it was. That was a relationship that I had to go through because that pain that I experienced in that breakup was what I needed to put me on the catalyst of where I am now.
Okay. Yeah.
Because just dealing with the depression and just the heartache of going through that, I was not in a great place. And my buddy was like, well, why don't you go see my psychiatrist? And I was like, oh, I know where this is going to go because...
put you on a bunch of meds and numb you to not feel what you're supposed to be feeling. Well, it goes back to what you said a couple minutes ago. Feel that, right?
Right.
Because it's like, if you love someone deeply and then you have to separate from that person for whatever the reason is, that should hurt.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You know, it's just like physical pain. Like if there's a part, if your knee is aching and you're like, oh, fuck it, I need to pop some 500 milligram Motrin and now I'm good.
You missed the message.
Yeah, exactly. Your body's trying to say, actually, there's something going on here. Pay attention to it. You know, it's the same thing like spiritually or emotionally. Hey, there's something going on here. It doesn't feel good.
Right.
And then that helps you build yourself into a better person for the next time you enter a relationship.
Right. So I did end up going and seeing that psychiatrist, and he was like, yeah, sounds like you're depressed. Let me give you a prescription for some antidepressants.
God,
well,
the fucking Western world is nuts.
I did that from 12 till 20 because I was diagnosed as being ADHD and being bipolar. Then I went on a vacation in Mexico and ran out of my medications and felt better than I ever had in my entire life. And from that point forward, I was like, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. And so then to basically come full circle and have somebody else tell me, well, you need to be on prescriptions, I was like, no, I'm not going to accept that. I know where this road is going to lead. Yeah. And so that's when I started looking at other approaches. And I found a yoga studio that was close to the place that I worked at. And I went in there and just kind of talked with one of the gals that was there. And she's like, well, sounds like, maybe we just need to do some breathing practices and some yoga. And so
how old were you at this point?
Probably 24, okay, I think, at that point, and maybe 25. And so I started doing yoga and did some breath work. And that's when I started to realize that there's something here that is not normal, right? Because that mentality of like, this is outside of the normal Western box of how you should do things. But yet when I would get done with, and that particular yoga studio was very focused on a lot of breath work. Not knowing anything about breathwork at the time, I didn't understand what I was doing. But after I would get out of those sessions, I felt like a completely different person. I felt more connected with myself than I ever had. And that was the lesson I needed to learn. Ending that relationship was the reason I felt so lost, was because I lost who I was in the relationship by trying to meet a certain box that she wanted me to meet. Mm-hmm. And that was a lesson moving forward of I no longer wanted to be in a relationship with somebody that didn't love me for exactly who I was. So if they wanted me to change my clothes, if they wanted me to change my habits or routines or things like that, see you the fuck later.
Yeah, of course.
Because they're not honoring who I am. And that's the way a real relationship should work, is two whole people should come together in their own happiness to then make happiness be that much greater. But also recognizing that you're not always going to be happy.
For sure.
Relationships are up and downs. They're a roller coaster. So there are going to be highs, there are going to be lows, but you're not always going to experience them together.
Yeah.
So when you're in a relationship with somebody that recognizes you for who you are, they can be there for you when you need it, and you can be for them when they need it. And sometimes you guys will go through experiences that you need to be there for each other to get each other through.
Yeah.
And that's, again, what in the breathwork practice that I do, it's all about community. It's about the fact that you don't do this breathwork practice on your own, because you need somebody there to hold space for you. You need somebody there to be there energetically to allow you to go deeper and deeper into your own process.
Yeah, that's one thing you were talking about the other day, is how if you're going to experience these different breathing techniques or these breathwork clinics, your subconscious can't really allow you to get as deep as you can with other people sharing that space as you can when you do it alone.
Built-in safety mechanism.
Okay.
Your body has an innate intelligence. That innate intelligence, you could refer to it as your gut instinct, if you will. Mm-hmm. It's always there to keep you safe. And so if it knows that your consciousness is starting to physically detach from your conscious body, it's going to do whatever it can to keep that from happening so that your body stays safe and you stay here. But if your body knows that somebody else is here to protect you, to hold you, to make sure that your body is safe, now your subconscious can go wherever it needs to, either further into the body or further out of the body if that's what's needed.
Okay. No, that is, I'm already getting questions, but before I go into breathwork questions, I think it would be cool to really just talk about, like you said, you really started to delve into it when you went to Peru. And that was an overall like healing experience for you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So, fast forward through, so like I discovered yoga and kind of did that for a while, but never really got super deep into it. Like I recognized what the practice had to hold, but it wasn't something that super resonated with me. So I started going to the gym again a little bit. And then I started doing a lot of meditation. And that was really one of the catalysts that started moving. I've worked with plant medicines for a lot through my lifetime. It's one of the things that helped me get off of those prescription medications in my early 20s was using cannabis. That helped me to, early on, it wasn't consciously used. You know, I just got stoned and realized, hey, this brought me to the space that I feel great and I can move forward. I'd smoke a bowl and go to the gym and have an awesome workout. I'd go on a run or a bike ride, and it just connected me more with the present moment. It connected me more with this time and space reality that we come from.
Which for me, there's no longer two sides to this argument.
Yeah.
Cannabis has connected me to myself and my body more in the last 24 months than I thought possible. And it's interesting that this substance was demonized for so long. Mm-hmm. And it goes back to like only 10% of your brain works. Like, oh, and then these natural substances that just grow out of the earth that help you feel grounded and connected, like certain mushrooms and certain plants, we're going to ban those, right? And I mean, you could go down the rabbit hole as far as you want. Was that by design, or was that just the human being's innate ability to fuck ourselves? That, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard to say what happened if you look at like reefer madness and you talk about like the government conspiracies and shit. But regardless, these plants and substances have a symbiotic relationship with us, and we're learning that. And I think society's starting to reflect that. I mean, now here in Washington, you can get marijuana on any street corner. And, you know, we've talked about on the show a lot, you know, how many stupid bar fights I've been in, how much dumb shit I've done when I was drunk. Dude, when I have THC in me, I want to be in my sauna, or I want to be connecting with my friends. Yeah. Or I want to be working out. I like how it makes my body feel when I'm training. Yeah. And it's like, okay, I think there's more and more people starting to get it.
Well, and I think a lot of around cannabis, especially people who look at it as just a drug, right? It's fear. It's false evidence appearing real.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's where that whole reefer madness movement came from, was putting all of this false evidence out there, making it seem like this is the reality of what's going to happen to you if you smoke a joint.
Yeah. Weren't they saying like black men rape white women when they use this product? Yeah. It's like, what are we talking about?
There was even an advertisement, something that like, it makes women loose and like puts them into a state where they are prone to putting themselves into situations where they're not going to be able to control themselves, and like
all fear-based
stuff. And same thing, you know, I mean, you probably remember the advertisements from Dare of cracking an egg on a frying pan of this, you know, this is your brain, this is drugs, this is your brain on drugs, and it's sizzling there. Well, I'm sorry, I've experienced a lot of substance. I only do organics. I haven't touched any synthetics or anything like that, but every single organic substance that I've taken that comes from Mother Nature connects me further with Mother Nature.
Yeah. And, you know, it's like I've talked about a lot. We have cannabinoid receptors in our brain.
Right.
Where that's the only molecule that binds with it. So I don't care if you're a believer, you're a creationist or evolution, whatever it may be. There's symbiotic relationships that we hold with these different plants. Mm-hmm. And of course there is, because life takes life to exist, right? And it doesn't matter, like, you're a vegan, I'm a carnivore, right? Yeah. Like, when it comes to some of our outlooks, they couldn't be more different. But at the end of the day, we have to have these symbiotic relationships with the other plants and animals on planet Earth, or you don't exist anymore.
Right.
So to think that okay, some of these relationships that have developed since the dawn of mankind could be to help you with depression, help you feel connected to other people, help you understand who you are spiritually. And it's like, of course, you dumb motherfuckers. Of course, the planet has the answers that we need.
Right.
You know?
Well, and if we were all raised to recognize those plants when we see them and their benefit and what they were used for, what these plants are used for, if I combine this plant and this plant, now I get a new substance, you know, it's called alternative medicine. But if you break that down, alter and native, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so what is an altar? Something that we go to hold reverence. And then nature, something that we come from, right? So alternative medicine is literally just honoring nature. And it's what we've used previously until 200 years ago. Somebody said, no, here's a better way of doing things.
Yeah.
And that better way, all it has caused is more and more division, more and more disease. Yes, there have been awesome things that have come from modern medicine. Just like you said, if I get in a car accident, I don't want to be taken to a shaman and given ayahuasca. Yeah. I want to go to the fucking hospital and get a surgeon that's going to be able to put me back together.
Yeah.
But now once I'm done there, I'm going to go back to my native plant medicines and utilize those to then help my healing journey to come back to self again.
Well, I mean, every single person I know knows someone who, like one of my jiu-jitsu training partners, who was a brown belt at the time, which is an expert in jiu-jitsu, high-level athlete, hurt his back landscaping. And you already know where this story's going. And they gave him a bunch of pain meds. He got addicted to opioids and became a heroin junkie.
Yeah.
And this is a person that is super intelligent, super kind, super tough. And it's like, how did it get him? Well, guess what? I don't think any of us are immune to it.
No.
You know? And it's like, we just continue to go down this path that everybody knows has the potential to be toxic. And everybody knows is like, it's rooted in these big pharma movements. And it's time, we need to break that fucking cycle, man.
Well, and I think what's hard is that there's always that thought process of, oh yeah, it's not going to happen to me.
Bro, there's a part of me that's like, I'm going to get addicted to heroin just to show the world that you can go cold turkey if you have enough willpower. And then it's like, or do I?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I don't fucking know. But some extremely powerful people have gotten fucking wrapped up in that stuff. So I don't think anybody's immune.
No, I don't think anybody is immune, but we all have the same possibilities. Mm-hmm. Right? We all have the same possibility of being an addict, but we also have the same possibility of getting out of that addiction.
Yeah.
Every day we wake up, we can choose a different reality.
No, I agree with that. And to tell you the truth, like as I sit here right now, I do think that I could get addicted to heroin and say, watch this.
Yeah.
Because I think that the human mind, I mean, even before I understood a lot about myself, like spiritually, like I'm starting to grow into, even when I was like 20 years old or 19 in Ranger selection, it's just like not once did quitting come to my mind, because I made the decision like I'm fucking tougher than this and it'll either kill me or I'll be standing on the graduation field. And I don't even know if that's like inherent in me or where that came from, but I think we do need to understand that, like, dude, we hold a lot more power than we think.
Yeah.
And some people that get in tune with that at a young age probably are able to show that throughout their life. But bro, to take it back to the addiction thing, like as a police officer, I dealt with addiction every single day in Seattle because 99% of the people that I was dealing with were addicted to heroin or methamphetamine. That's a patrol cop's job in Seattle now because it's overwhelming the city. And when you first are immersed in that environment, you're like, fuck these people, fucking piece of shit. They're fucking stealing shit. And to a certain degree, I still feel that way about a lot of them because it's like, you might be addicted, but you're still making the choice to steal this from this person. And now you need to be held responsible for that. But then the other side of the coin is, man, I had a lot of conversations with people where they're just like a 35-year-old mother of 3, you know, and it's like, what are you doing stealing stuff? And she's like, well, you know, here's the deal. And you hear their story and it's like, fuck, man.
Yeah.
We're sending a lot of people down a dark path, and we're doing it ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think it also falls back to the sense of not having a community, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
So if you don't feel like you're part of a community, but yet all of a sudden these drugs bring you into a community, even though it's not necessarily a community you want to be a part of, but it's still a community. It still makes you feel like now you're a part of something.
Bro, that's how people get wrapped up in all these crazy cults and all the bullshit.
Exactly.
It's like we have this inherent need to share space and energy with other people. And that's why like our gym is so powerful. And for people like that are just listening, Adam is a coach downstairs and runs part of the CrossFit program. And then obviously I'm the coach upstairs that runs a jiu-jitsu program, but we all share the facility. So even though there's not a lot of crossover between the teams, we see what's going on.
It's one community.
Space.
Yeah.
And I walk downstairs and I can see like, I can feel the energy from your classes, just like if anyone comes upstairs, they can feel it. And, you know, the community aspect of what's happening inside of that building, it's more important than the amount of burpees you're doing or who you choke that night. And that's that's the truth.
Yeah. And, you know, a lot of people will look at CrossFit or jiu-jitsu and be like, oh, you know, that's too hard. I can't do that. But the reality is we all have to start somewhere. Mm-hmm. But what kept me going back to CrossFit was the community. It wasn't the workouts. I fucking hate the workouts. Like everyone that goes to CrossFit, nobody really enjoys the workouts.
If you told me you liked the workouts, I'd have to question everything about you.
I mean, box over burpees, maybe.
No, bro, it's torturous. But then the other, like, doing really hard shit with other people by your side.
Yeah.
That's what builds that community. You can't develop that kind of trust and bond with people if all of the time you share together, everything's going good, everything's smooth, everything feels good. It's like, no, we're going to do some really, really hard shit with each other. You're going to see me at my worst. You're going to watch me on the precipice of almost breaking. Then we're going to pull each other along.
Yeah.
And some people are more verbal than other. Like Angie, who's me and Jenny's training partner, she's always very aware to look over if she sees you hurting, give you that encouragement, right?
Yeah.
But that's also her gift, right? I usually, when I'm fucking dying, I just internalize it and I fucking just say, I'm getting through this, you know? But regardless, when it's done, we all shared that together and we look back and say, man, that sucked, but how good do we feel now?
Yeah. It's this huge sense of accomplishment when you get done with it and you can high five your buddy that you just beat by 5 seconds, but it doesn't matter because you both are just challenging yourselves. Like it's a competition of one. And that's the one thing I always try to remind athletes is like, don't compare yourself to somebody else.
For sure.
Because their body is not your body. Their journey is not your journey.
Yeah.
So honor where you are. And if you can add an extra pound, 2.5, 5 pounds to your lift the next week, the following week, and you keep making those movements forward, that's what matters. It doesn't matter beating somebody else. And like, I finally stopped. We use an app called Sugar Watt that basically tells us what the workout is and everyone can log your workouts and give each other fist bumps and things like that. And I was all about it when I first joined CrossFit. But then I started to realize that it was making me be very competitive with other people. And if somebody beat me by 5 pounds, I would get down on myself like, fuck, I had a shitty lift that day. But no.
Yeah. I see.
I didn't have a shitty lift because I still lifted 10 pounds more than I did the previous week. So for me, that was still a good lift. But in comparison to somebody else, that's a shitty lift. What the fuck? Why do we do that to ourselves?
Bro, it's literally like everything else in this life. And it's a double-edged sword because, you know, the saying, the comparison's the thief of joy. And I talked about this exact same thing on the podcast before. So if you're like, oh, he's already said that, then just turn the radio off. But like on one hand, comparing yourself to your training partners, there could be a lot of good derived from that. It's like, hey, this dude's doing this and look how well it's working for him. I'm just not making the gains that he's making. Well, what is he doing?
Yeah.
What is he eating? How much is he sleeping? And you can compare yourself to your teammates that are outperforming you and you can pull good from that. But you can also compare yourself to your other teammates and be like, well, why does it work for him and not for me? Or I tried this and it's not working. And you can attach negative energy to it too.
Right.
And so it's like, allow the other people in your team that are performing well and doing good things to inspire you. And you can look to them and you can say, hey, this person's doing that better than me. That girl's doing this better than me. As long as the overall arching theme of the comparison is, how do I see what they're doing and make me a better version of myself? And bro, the comparisons between CrossFit and Jiu-Jitsu are very similar because it's the same thing. You can't say, oh, that person choked me, and so now I feel like shit, because their abilities versus your abilities, okay, that's how far down do you want to dissect that?
Yeah.
I trained with one of my Andy Stone. I trained with him last week. He's been doing jiu-jitsu for 4.5 years. I've been doing it for 20. And we had a pretty neutral round. Neither one of us could beat the other guy. Neither one of us could get points against the other guy. And it was like 7 minutes of pure neutrality. And I could go home and be like, fuck, dude, I've been training for fucking 5 times as long as him, and he's already figured me out. Or I could be like, dude, how amazing is that?
Yeah.
He's gotten that good that fast. And now at 42, I feel like I'm at the first time in my life where I can just appreciate the journey for what it is and not attach all those negative stigmas to it.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's like honoring all the challenges that you've gone through life thus far. You've overcome all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So why not have some fucking gratitude for it, right?
Yeah,
like,
there you go.
Instead of being pissed off that I'm not here yet, or I don't have this yet, or this person's already there, why am I not there yet?
Mm-hmm.
If you were meant to be there, you would. We are all where we are meant to be in this exact moment. And life is always working for us to get us to where we are meant to go. Because we do all have a purpose. We do all have a specific thing that we came to this life to be here for.
So do you think if we're all where we're supposed to be, does that mean that destiny controls all?
No, I think destiny has a part to play, yes, but we are in a free will reality.
That's that's the conclusion I'm coming to too, is that opportunities are zinging by us 24/7. They could be in the form of a professional opportunity, a relationship, anything, right?
Yeah.
There's millions of potential opportunities, but you have to be willing to position yourself to grab a hold of them.
Right.
And I think that is the key to succeeding. And it doesn't matter, business, relationships, fucking athletics. As these opportunities come by, you have to have positioned yourself to reach out and grab them.
Well, and you need to have the awareness on what opportunity you need to reach out and grab and what opportunity you need to let go by you.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are opportunities that will be presented in front of you that are a test. So I'll give you an example.
Yeah, please.
So a couple of months back, I was presented with the opportunity of taking over CrossFit Lake Stevens from the previous owner, Shane.
Yeah.
And we went through conversations about this, and I was all for it because, hey, yeah, I'm going to jump in and make 20, 30 grand a month. Fuck yeah, I'll do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I? But the more I thought about it, because that was in the time period where I was going through my Breathwork certification course. And that was my plan. That was where I wanted to go. That was where I felt my purpose was. But then I was presented this easy opportunity to come in and just jump into a set business that was running itself, that all I really needed to do was help continue to turn the key in the door.
Yeah.
And just let it run. And so the more and more I started going towards that, saying, okay, that's what I'm going to do now, and I'm going to go in that direction, all of a sudden things started getting a little complicated. And then another person came into the mix that was wanting to buy the gym. And now all of a sudden it wasn't this.
Who's a good friend of yours as well.
Yeah, who's a good friend of mine.
Coming out of this.
Yeah, so now it basically put me into a position of I felt like I had to fuck one friend or the other.
Yeah.
And not in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
So I kept on going back and forth, and I was like, is this actually the right way to go for me? And then I sat down and had a conversation with Shane and Josh and was like, look, this is what my plan was. I'm still down to make this path, but if me going down this path means that I'm taking away an opportunity from somebody else to actually go further down their purpose, that doesn't feel right. And the more I sat with it, the more it was like, it just hurt in my heart to think that I was taking away somebody's out from a job that was sucking their soul.
Yeah.
To just do something that was going to be easy money for me when I still had another opportunity that actually is where I'm supposed to go. And the moment I made the decision to let go of the gym and just continue focusing on my breath work, that was when the magic in life really started happening. And more better opportunities continued to present themselves, letting me know I made the right decision.
Yeah. That shit's fascinating, man.
Yeah.
It is, you know? So, fuck, we're almost at an hour already.
It's crazy.
Dude, that's what I love. Again, like I said when we started, no agenda. We're just fucking going for it, you know? But I really want to get into your path towards breathwork.
Yeah.
What that journey looked like, what people can kind of take away from it or what they can expect from it. And then, like you said when we started, we're going to end today's episode with a clinic that you can do as a listener, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I actually would like to do is I'm going to take you guys through a short breath work. It's not a full session, so you don't have to worry about like having all of the stuff or anything like that. It's if you're sitting down, just not driving the car, obviously, because you're going to need to close your eyes and be in a safe place.
Okay. And if you do it while you're driving and you crash, that's your problem.
Yeah. So if you're listening in your car right now, just maybe take a pause. And when we're going to do this, pause, wait until you get home, and then you can resume and do this breathwork session. Because I really want you guys to actually have an opportunity to experience what the breathwork's like. And then I will give you guys a practice that you can do daily, preferably 2 times a day, that will really help kind of just set your day up from a full alignment of you. Instead of starting your day off instantly grabbing your phone and letting it to kind of steer you in a certain direction. If we can start and end our day focused in who we are and what we want the day to look like, we're already creating our reality before the day can even get started.
Okay, so if you're new to this, that's what you recommend. You start your day with a breathwork session and then you end your day.
Yeah, so the daily practice, it only takes 3 to 5 minutes depending upon how long you feel comfortable doing the breath. But if you do it at the end of your day, so like right before you're going to bed, you kind of help set your next day up by putting yourself into a state of being as you're going to sleep, allowing your subconscious to then rewrite what's going to happen the next day. Then when you wake up and do your breathwork practice again, you're reaffirming that intention of how you want to show up in the day.
Okay.
And it's incredibly powerful. I've been doing it not religiously, but almost every single day since I started my course in February. And it just helps you to stay centered throughout the day. Like things that typically would kind of trigger me or get me to get a little frustrated or things like that just don't have as much power over me anymore.
Awesome.
And that's, kind of looping back to your challenge of yourself of like not getting angry. It's not about not getting angry, but it's about not allowing that anger to then hold over you throughout the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So like if you think of emotions like spices on spice rack, you wouldn't use cayenne pepper in every single dish that you cook.
Mm-hmm.
It makes some things taste like shit. So we want to use the right spices for the right dish. So we use anger, but then when it's no longer relevant, we put it back on the shelf and come back to our neutral state of being.
Well, I think that's probably a very common problem in America is we let an acute incident or an acute onset of emotions affect us indefinitely. I was actually hanging out with a buddy last week and he said, you know what fucking statement I hate more than anything is tomorrow's a new day. Because he goes, if you tell yourself tomorrow's a new day, you're kind of accepting that today is fucked and we can straighten it out tomorrow. And he's like, man, if you allow an incident to fuck your day and you're not willing to straighten it out right now, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Right.
And I was like, wow, that's a pretty powerful perspective because it's not tomorrow's a new day. It's the next minute of your life is a new minute.
The next second, the next moment.
Yeah.
At any point in time, you can choose to change your state of being. And that's what's powerful with breathwork, is because like the one thing we do, the very first thing we do when we come into this life is take a breath. And the very last thing we do when we exit this life is take a breath. So it's the one superpower that we have throughout our entire life. And it's the one bodily function that we can control or not control.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Think about that for a second, right?
Fascinating to hear it put like that.
There's nothing else you can do with your body that you can do consciously and unconsciously.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So if you can consciously use your breath to change your state of being, that's a superpower.
Yeah.
And it's a superpower we all have. But we don't know we have until somebody shows us that we have it.
You know, but we almost do know that. I mean, like, people will just say, like, hey, just relax and take a breath. Like people kind of on a subconscious level understand this.
Oh, absolutely.
But, and even like when I see kids crying at jiu-jitsu, I'll have them do like a box breath, where it's like 4 seconds in, hold for 4 seconds, 4 seconds out, and then hold at the bottom for 4 seconds.
Yep.
And I'd say, if you can do that 5 times, now you're in control.
Yeah.
Because you're not crying because you're hurt. You're crying because there's anxiety attached to the loss, right, or to the tweak of your arm or whatever it is, right? And it's crazy because I don't understand breath work hardly at all. I've done one breath work clinic with my friend Emily Hayden, and it just allowed me to touch the power of it.
Yeah.
So now I know it's there, but I don't understand it at all. But even a very simple exercise like that, and you can see kids from bawling to being like, and then you see their eyes shift. You feel their energy shift. And it's
they take control.
Hey, you good? I'm good now.
Yeah.
All right, let's go get back in the round then. Boom.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And so like breath work, there's all kinds of different breath works, and they all have their different place. The type of breath work that I use is called somatic breath work. And so somatic, or soma, stands for the body. So somatic is to be in the body. So somatic breath work is basically to breathe into the body. And so it's more about connecting with our body's innate intelligence and what it has to offer us as far as information on maybe areas in our body that we're holding stress. And you brought your knee up as an injury, and the knee is actually an area in our body where a lot of us hold stress. So people who have a lot of chronic knee pain that doesn't come from a previous injury, that just is kind of there, that may actually be the body's way of saying that there's something stuck here that needs your attention. And that's what pain a lot of times is. It's a signaling system. It's telling us that something is out of alignment. So, and I've recognized this in my breathwork practice of seeing people who some people come in with emotional issues. Some people come in with physical issues. Some people just want to come in and just relax and let go of a little stress. It's all great with breathwork because you're in control of the breathwork process. You get to choose how fast you're going to breathe. You get to choose how deep you're going to breathe. So therefore, you get to choose how deep you go into your process or how not deep you go into your process. In the somatic breathwork, I'm here to basically create a safe space for you to go onto your own inner journey. And it's guided with some pretty loud music that has a certain trajectory. There's a clearing half, and then there's a rest and repatterning half. So both use a different type of breath pattern. And both of those breath patterns are meant to trigger both sides of the nervous system, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic side of the nervous system. So basically your fight or flight side and your rest and repair side.
Okay.
And by taking the body from one extreme to the other, you're basically hitting the reset button on the nervous system. And during that reset, that's the opportunity where you can choose to how you want to rewrite that operating system. So in the clearing half, it basically allows you to use your breath to go into the areas of your body where either stress is stuck, trauma is stuck, energy is stuck. And just to give a little definition, what's traumatic for one person isn't necessarily traumatic for another person. And trauma isn't what happens to you, but what happens inside of you based on what happened to you.
Yeah, that's a great way to put that. And it's funny, I've never heard it put like that. Being someone that's been exposed to a massive amount of trauma.
Yeah.
And you see some soldiers, it breaks their spirit, and others don't give a fuck, dude. And so, yeah, that's a good way of putting it. It's not what happened. It's how you deal with it.
Right. Well, and I think it's maybe not necessarily that some don't give a fuck.
No,
some know how to bottle it up better than others.
Yeah. And that is not, I mean, that's a whole other podcast in itself, is that is not always a good thing.
Right.
But I do think on the battlefield, compartmentalizing your trauma is probably good.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I've seen men break and be like, oh, fuck, dude, you see that kid die today? And it's like, most guys are in the team like, fuck that kid. We got shit to do. You know?
Yeah.
But the fuck that kid mentality, just know, because I'm here to tell you, you got to revisit that at some point in your life. And for me, I revisited the fuck that kid mentality when I brought my own children into the world. Because that's when you realize the purity and the innocence of a child. And it's like, whoa.
The wisdom.
That was a dark perspective to hold at the time.
Yeah.
But I also think we needed that.
Yeah.
You know? So there's no right or wrong. It just is.
Right. Yeah. And that is, I mean, that kind of brings it to breathwork or ceremony. There is never a right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is perfect for what you went through. And in a breathwork practice, whatever you go through is meant for you in that moment. So if you go into it with this expectation of I'm supposed to go through this and I'm supposed to experience this, well, guess what? If your body's not ready to process that, it's not going to happen. So part of going into a breathwork practice or any type of ceremony, because I do look at my breathwork practice more as a ceremony than just a workshop or something like that. Because I like to just hold that level of reverence for it. But having not only an intention going into it, but also allowing whatever wants to come up and whatever wants to process, just allowing that to happen and not stopping that process. And that's where a lot of people find the challenge.
I was just going to say, to accept that I'm just going to let the process have like a life of its own. That's going to take a certain amount of vulnerability.
Surrender.
And most of us struggle with that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's surrendering to the process is the key. No matter what it is, whether it's breath work, whether it's a plant medicine ceremony, whether it's a CrossFit workout.
Yeah.
Surrendering to the process and recognizing that what's in the moment right now isn't always going to be, but it's right now. And how do we process through right now?
Yeah. No, that's a very interesting perspective. So like you say you like to start and finish your day with some breath work, but then from like a ceremonial standpoint, like when you're running somebody else through it.
Yeah.
Just kind of describe what that looks like. Is that an hour-long process, or do you have to meet with the people? And
it's typically about 90 minutes.
Okay, so that's a long. Ceremony takes on kind of a different meaning then.
Yeah,
it is. That's a long process.
Yeah, and so somatic breath work, which was created by my teachers, Stephen Jaggers and Andrew Fisher, they created this loosely based off of holotropic breath work, which was created by Stanislov and Christine Grof in the 90s. In the 1970s or 60s, if I remember correctly, when they first started. There's a really great book called Holotropic Breathwork by them that goes into kind of how they got onto breathwork. But it's finding a way to allow people to have a practice where they can really dive deep. And so if it's too short, you can only dive in so deep. So like the 10, 15 minute practice we're going to go through today, you'll experience something, but not going to be the same thing as if you breathe for 60 minutes.
Got it. Okay.
So holotropic breath work, they go for like 3+ hours. So they're super, super intense, really long.
That's gnarly.
It is not for the faint of heart. My first...
I feel like you have to be like an athlete to go through something like that, you know?
It's work. I mean, I've even had people get out of a 1 hour breathwork session say, I feel like I just did 10 years of therapy in an hour.
Let me ask you this. This is something Rogan said one time, because You know how when you get done with a hard run or you're on the ski erg for 30 minutes and you're like, I feel fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Right? Rogan was talking about, he's like, is it the exercise that makes us feel amazing? Or is it the fact that because our body is requiring us to breathe hard, we've basically put ourselves through a breathwork seminar.
Yeah.
And you can call it exercise, but it's the breathwork that you're getting that response from.
Yeah. So it's basically you're triggering a bunch of chemical reactions that are happening in your body. And so the breath is what controls a lot of those chemical reactions, because the breath controls the heartbeat. The breath controls a lot of things that happen, communication between our heart, our brain, our organs. So many things are all controlled by the breath. You take a pause in your breath, it's going to tell everything else to take a pause for a second. Mm-hmm. You increase the level of your breath, it's going to tell everything else to increase its levels. So the breath is basically like you're balancing. And by controlling that breath in one pattern over another, you get to choose what's going to happen. So in a breathwork practice, this is a very big misconception in breathwork. People think that you're hyperoxygenating the blood. You're not actually hyperoxygenating the blood. You're changing the balance of the carbon dioxide and the oxygen within the blood. That then alkalizes the blood, that then starts to trigger chemical reactions happening in the brain. That then drops us further and further into our process. And a lot of people in certain breathwork practices, somatic breathwork is absolutely no different, can trigger DMT release to happen in their body that can give people transcendental experiences. I've had several people get out of the session telling me that they met God, or that they sat with a loved one that had passed away several years ago, or people reliving ancestral traumas. Like one story one of my teachers told is this one gal went through a breathwork session when they did a large group event, and she relived being taken from her tribe in Africa, put on a boat, made a slave, and picking cotton in the fields.
That's fucking crazy, dude.
Having obviously not coming from Africa, having grown up in the United States, she knows, that's not her reality. But that was somebody that she came from's reality. Mm-hmm. And so, but by
genetic memory is a thing too. And again, you can go do the studies or you can read about the studies, but genetic memory is no longer a theory. They have proven it through science. And again, that's why most people are afraid of snakes, right?
Yeah.
Like at some point, someone in your family tree got hit by a pit viper and it fucking made their leg rot off. That happened enough times throughout history that a lot of people are averse to being around that animal.
So can I blow your mind for a second?
Please
that you just brought up a snake? So one of the book recommendations that I was going to send you is called The Cosmic Serpent, DNA and the Origins of Knowledge.
Okay. Yeah.
And so Jeremy Knarby, who was an anthropologist that if I remember correctly, the 80s went down to the Peruvian jungle in the Amazon to research the Quechua people and their ways of life down in the jungle. Unbeknownst to him, he was going to get introduced to ayahuasca and the plant medicines that were down there. Then having an experience and realizing, okay, well, if these people are saying that they got all of this knowledge from the plants, how? How is that possible? And so he continued to do more and more research and started to realize that the one thing that we all have in common is the same DNA. Both plants, mammals, fish, rocks, we all contain the same genetic makeup within us. Things are just oriented in slightly different ways that then makes us look or appear different. But we all have that same genetic information. So if we all have that same information, we just have to find a way to tap into that. That's what he started to realize, is that all of this information is available within our DNA. And through the use of certain plant medicines, it basically opens up the door to those DNA to then be able to be activated. And that's why people will go through experiences and all of a sudden feel like they have a different lightness in their body, or they can hear better, or they can smell better, or they can just see the world with a different light. Things literally are different in your body after you've gone through a breathwork session or a plant medicine ceremony. So you are unlocking and changing things. And that's like, it's almost like you're unlocking, okay, now I have 11% of my brain. Now I have 12. Now I have 20. Now I have 30. And you wonder, like, you meet some people who have gone through numerous amounts of ceremonies and are just rock solid in their being. You know they're operating at a completely different level than most people.
For sure. Yeah.
They've tapped into something completely different. That is there for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we were kind of talking about earlier, like that abundance mentality, right? Like a lot of us are stuck in the mentality of scarcity, and that goes beyond just money. Scarcity from not having enough, just lack in general.
Yeah, spiritual scarcity, financial scarcity.
Exactly. So, but when we can start getting to alignment with more abundance and recognize that abundance is our natural state of being, we live in a world of abundance. We have just been told it's otherwise.
Yeah, man. And I wonder, like, for whatever reason, a lot of people, because the mindset of scarcity is also just that low vibration.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, a lot of people have accepted that as the natural state of being.
And accepted that that's always where they will be.
Mm-hmm.
That it can never be any different because they were born into this one situation. But the reality is most of the upper 1% of people aren't college graduates. Some of them didn't even graduate high school. A lot of them didn't come from money. I'd say a much smaller percentage of that 1% actually came from money.
Yeah.
But the majority of those people figured out a way to tap into something that allowed them to get to that point. And it is available for all of us.
Yeah, for sure, man.
You just have to remove the limiting beliefs that live inside of you that tell you otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, in my opinion, where somatic breathwork is so powerful, is because you get to use your own breath to tap into your body in the areas where that shit lies.
Well, one thing that I think would make this such a great tool to show people this is that, like, if you want to use health and fitness to show people their power, the truth is you got to commit 6 months of your time. And now you'll start to really feel those physiological changes in your body, right? But in breath work, you can peel back the layers of this onion inside of, like you say, you do it in 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And now people feel like, oh, because I've only done it, like I said, one time, but I left there with okay, so there's this now.
Yeah.
And like, it expands your consciousness.
It
expands your relationship with the fucking world.
Well, it expands your awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, in my opinion, meditation, contemplation, all of those practices are just about expanding awareness of yourself and expanding awareness of the world that we live in.
Yeah.
And, if you think about all of the hero journeys that we as kids really like to watch and things like that, like Clash of the Titans was one of my favorites as a kid. Well, the main character had to go through trials and tribulations to train his body, to train his mind, to get him to the point to be able to then undergo the hero's journey.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of us don't do a fucking thing like that,
yeah.
Right? Like, we sit on the couch, we play video games, we live a very sedentary lifestyle. Not speaking of myself in that terms, but just in generalities, the Western lifestyle is about being comfortable.
For sure, which is the silent killer.
Yeah,
in the Western
the comfort
society.
zone is where you go to die.
Well, and dude, it's like, if you look at any other culture outside of the Western culture, the hero's journey is kind of a thing. Like, there's these different things that you have to endure to be considered a man.
Yeah.
And like, there's some tribes where like they want you to pull the tail of a lion, or there's other tribes where it's like, you have to go live amongst the fucking wolves for a week on your own. If you come back, like, all right, you turn 12, we kick you out of the tribe for a week. And if you come back, now you're a man.
Right.
And it's like, I'm not saying like one is right or one is wrong, but a challenge to face you as a person. You're going to come back, and not only are you a better version, but now you hold the respect of the people because they're like, all right, he did it.
Right.
I think that's missing.
Yeah.
That's missing, because the only adversity that Americans go through is self-imposed adversity. Some of us have figured out that formula, And some of us haven't.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, if you don't understand that that's part of the path, you're missing out.
Right. Well, and I think part of the whole thing with the hero's journey is it's just remembering it's all a journey back to self.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about overcoming the challenges outside of self. Yes, physicality, that's what we have to do. But all of these hard things that we go through, it's about just coming back more in alignment with who we authentically are, with who we truly are. And like when we're kids, we are more ourselves authentically than we ever will be in our lifetime.
For sure, dude.
And that's why kids have so much wisdom to teach us, because they know who they are until society conditionings tell them otherwise. And then they start to shape their personality based off of that. But in the hero's journey and in ancient cultures, you go on those journeys to discover who you are. And then you actually go the rest of your life from the standpoint of knowing who you are and what you're destined to do.
Man, we need to come up with something.
Right?
You know?
I mean, that's the thing is, if more and more of us could have a way of connecting with ourselves from an early age, to then be able to go forth as an adult, fully knowing who you are, not then trying to figure out who you are in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, however long,
mm-hmm.
What would this world look like?
Yeah. And you know what's weird is like our society attaches like negative connotations to that. He's having a midlife crisis. You mean he's trying to find himself?
Yeah.
No, it's a midlife crisis. That's silly. Get back to work.
Right.
Punch your fucking time card. It's nuts.
Or you get the other people. I mean, my wife and I were getting ready to hit the road full time in our converted school bus. And we've worked really hard over the last couple of years to save up a bunch of money. And now we get to go off and enjoy life. And people are like, how do you do that? How did you sell your house? How did you sell your cars? How did you get rid of all your stuff and move into 240 square feet? Like, because I made the decision I wanted something different with my life.
Yeah.
I chose that the industry that I was in and the job that I've been doing for the last 12 years has been eating me alive and has been taking me further out of alignment with who I truly am, which then makes me have more challenging situations in life. And all of a sudden I show up to a job site that should only take me an hour, should be a quick deal. And it takes me 3.5 because everything fights me.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, why is everything fighting me today? Because I'm doing something I'm not meant to do.
Yeah. No, that's interesting, man. People will see people that broke the mold and they'll look at it from one of two ways. And they'll say, wow, like
he was lucky.
Yeah. There's the people who are like, how did you do that? Like out of genuine, like, dude, they have figured out something that brings them happiness. How did you do that? And then there's other people. It's like, must be nice.
Yeah.
Oh, it must be, look what they're doing.
Yeah.
Just fucking traveling around on a bus.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, you guys are fucking telling yourselves a lie. Because any one of us can do whatever the fuck we want.
But fear, it's that false evidence appearing real.
Bro, that everything comes back down to that.
Yeah.
And I talk about that often with listeners because a lot of my listeners being military and police officers, they're in that cycle where they're chasing the retirement and, oh, dude, I'm already at the 12-year mark, so I only got to do 8 more. And it's like, you're going to allow 8 years of your journey in the universe to be dictated by outside influences that don't feel like they're in alignment with you?
Yeah.
Fuck the military. Fuck, you know what I mean? It's like, it's funny we're talking about this. I had a conversation with a friend this morning and I was like, you know what? I think the military specifically is a great journey from 18 to 25. I said, I think much past 25, it's starting to stifle a lot of potential and growth.
Sure.
Because you're told how to think. You're told what to do. You're told where to be. You're told how to behave.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, the more people can step outside of what we've just been programmed with our whole fucking lives and try and find yourself, I think people will be pleasantly surprised of what that journey feels like.
Yeah.
And for me, especially the last 24 months, I was kind of thrown into this journey, right? But then again, I threw myself into it with a decision. So it's like, there's a part of this that was manifested. And I'm here to tell you, man, getting away from all of what society thinks is the normal path for you to walk, it feels fucking better.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and I think sometimes the hardest thing is taking that step away.
For sure.
Is recognizing that you can't change anything from the same state of being, or, well, you can only change things from the same state of being that it was created.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want a different reality, but you're sitting in a different reality and you're focused on that reality that you're in, but wanting something different, I'm sorry to tell you, but nothing's going to change.
Yeah.
If you want something to change, something has to change. So, but that's the hard thing for a lot of people is the uncomfortable feeling of things changing.
Dude, comfort is your enemy. Comfort makes you a coward. Comfort makes you afraid. Comfort makes you weak.
Yeah.
And comfort keeps you from progressing into who you're supposed to be. And that's like we just talked about, adversity helps you discover who you're supposed to be. Well, the equal and opposite side of that is comfort kills who you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And like, it's strange that we've arrived at this place where we seek comfort all the time. And it's like, fucking kill comfort.
Yeah.
You know?
100%. You know, it's almost like I laugh at myself if people put these like super thick seats on their bikes, right? To try and make it as comfortable as possible.
Yeah.
But part of the thing that keeps you riding and keeps you moving is that seat being uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
It keeps you going to get to that destination so you can finally get off the fucking bike and chill for a bit, right?
It's funny you say that, man. Like when I finally bought like a high-end bike, I remember thinking that I was like, this seat is literally like an inch and a half wide and it feels like concrete.
Yeah. But what's interesting is that once your body gets adapted to that, all of a sudden that seat disappears.
Yeah, no, you're right. For sure.
And you can just put miles upon miles upon miles in the seat. But it took a period of time of being uncomfortable.
Yep.
For your body to get adapted.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is that a lot of people don't give themselves enough time to get adapted to a new pattern. Because it takes 66 days for a new habit to get started and instilled within the body to where now it will become autonomous.
Yeah. And I believe that. I mean, we talked about that the other weekend.
Yeah.
Because I just completed the 75 hard program. And now it feels like my routine.
Sure.
Like I'm not choosing to pick up this book and read. I'm not choosing to put my shoes on and go for a walk every morning. Like, this is just what I do now.
It's habit and routine,
which is
right?
Pretty cool.
I mean, there's a reason that it's 75, right? 66 would be a weird number to put out there for most people, right?
They're projecting Satanism on people.
Yeah, yeah. But there's all reasoning behind a lot of these things. But yet, how many 30-day challenges are there?
Yeah, there's a lot.
And people wonder, okay, well, I finished the 30-day challenge, and then 5 days later, they go back to doing the same shit.
And what I've noticed, because I did like Whole30, where you eat whole foods for this. I've done a million different things.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed is when your challenge is 30 days, you're still in the mindset is like, fuck yeah, on day 31, I get to have a cupcake or whatever it is, right? On day 31, I'm going to sleep in and watch Netflix. Bro, on day 76 of this, I was like, afraid because I was like, I don't want day 76 to be about a cupcake and sleeping in.
Yeah.
So, okay. So that means day 76 has to be about getting up and continuing the grind. And that's what it's supposed to be. That's the whole point. You know?
Right.
So,
well,
yeah.
And it's just like, developing new habits are hard. They're meant to be because it's meant to challenge your character. It's meant to see, can you uphold what you're trying to achieve and actually do the work necessary to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it was easy, everyone would do it.
Yeah.
Right.
No, for sure. Yeah.
So,
and nothing worth having comes with ease.
Nothing.
That's the truth.
And if it's easy, question.
Uh-huh.
Right. So like, that's what I had to do with the CrossFit gym was like, that opportunity was easy. It was an easy choice to say yes to. It was not an easy choice to say no to.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But I had to honor who I was. And I had to honor the things that I have gone through to get me to where I am at today. And would choosing this path honor that and continue that growth? Or would it lead me back to just being more materialistic and, okay, now I'm making more money, so now I can spend more money and things like that? No, now I know my purpose is to help other people, just help other people.
Yeah. And just like you said, like the universe is going to fix itself and it's going to present the right path as long as you choose to accept it. And I think all parties involved now are like, this is the right path.
It was
everybody,
100%.
Everybody feels it now.
Yeah.
You know? Dude, it's just, and the thing is, it doesn't have to be like your example is a fucking thriving business that could have changed the whole trajectory of your life, right? But it's all these little decisions too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, did you see the log in my front yard when you pulled up?
No.
Okay, I'll show you when we leave. It's like a 10-foot log. And we were on the beach at our river yesterday. And Siler's like, I want to build like a cat house out of this log. I said, okay, we'll fucking bring it home then. And Jenny goes, come down here with your, and well, she goes, how much of that log do you need, Siler? And she's like, probably like 4 feet or something. And then Jenny goes, come down here with your chainsaw and cut the section you need and we'll take that home. Well, you don't need to carry that whole fucking thing up the hill. And then I was like, well, now I have to.
Challenge accepted.
Now you know what I mean? And now I understand. We don't need all 10 feet of this, but it's a 10-foot log and it's fucking coming home with us. And bro, that destroyed me. Carrying that thing back to the car over my shoulder. It was literally like, and it didn't take me a very long time, but in that short amount of time, my shirt was drenched. I couldn't breathe any harder. And it felt like Fran. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah,
it's not a super long workout, but you're pushing your body to its absolute limits.
And your lungs are smoked.
Yeah. And then I was like, dude, this log has to be 200 pounds. It has to be. So I was like, all right, we got home and I brought it up to the car. I tied it down. I drove it home, threw it in the front yard. And then, Jenny went and grabbed the scale because she's like, well, let's see. Dude, it's only 115 pounds. I was like, what the fuck? But the thing is, like, we get an idea of what 115 pounds is because of a bumper plate and an Olympic bar. But weight is really how it's distributed.
100%.
It's not what it weighs. And a good example is all of my mace spells. Like, go work out with my 30-pound mace spell and you'll feel weak.
I'll take my 10.
That's what I'm saying. Because it's like, this is only 30 pounds.
Yeah.
How is it distributed?
Right.
You know? So we're going off on a tangent, but I thought that was interesting because it's like, here it was. It's like, I was confronted with the decision. All right, do I carry it back or do I not? And I knew carrying it back would be the much harder decision. But then as soon as someone else said, you don't have to do that, that was giving me the out. And then I had to crush the out.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like, nope, I know what's right. And it's this.
Well, and you can also think about it from like an energy perspective, right? Like, how much energy did you have to exert to move that log? Okay, so sure, if you came back and you cut it down to 4 feet, it would have weighed less, wouldn't have been as long. You probably could have moved it a little bit faster. But how much energy did you exert driving back home?
Exactly.
Getting your chainsaw, coming back, then cutting it with the chainsaw, then taking it back to the truck, then driving it back. Versus just doing the hard thing then in the moment,
getting it over
and
with.
just getting it over with.
For sure, dude.
And it's like, how many of us think of something that we want or something that we want to achieve, but we recognize that it's going to be hard or a struggle to get to that point. And then we just let that fear or that, man, it's going to be uncomfortable for a little while. So maybe I just don't want to do that. Instead of just biting the bullet, putting in the work, grinding out a little bit, and recognizing that on the other side of that, you're going to have so much gratitude for what you were able to accomplish.
For sure, man.
Instead of saying no.
Yep. Fuck yeah, dude. Well, I want to fucking really dive into the breathwork.
All right.
Now. So I don't know if you want to do the clinic first and then kind of unpack it, or if you want to really kind of delve into what it is that you do?
Yeah. So I'll take kind of a run back to, the trip that I took down to Peru.
Okay. Yeah.
I decided to take that trip it was during the process that we were converting our bus, and it took me 11 months to do the first round of conversion. I was doing that while working full time, while also trying to have a social life, while, doing all the stuff, right? Had several mental breakdowns throughout the process because it was just more than what I could handle.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have any at the time good outlets to be able to express that extra stress that I was taking on. And so through the process, I was starting to recognize that like my mental stability is drastically declining and something needs to change. And so I started doing a bunch of research, and at the time I just meant like I just smoked more weed. So I just went further and further down into it and basically just numbed myself to the point where, okay, I don't have to feel this stuff.
Which I actually think is a great point, because a proponent of marijuana, it's just like anything else.
Yeah.
And if you're hiding inside of it, well, then it's probably not serving you.
Yeah. So, and that's where you can abuse any substance.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that's too much of a good thing is not good. So
you can abuse food.
Yeah, you can abuse food. People can even abuse water by just taking on a challenge of just trying to drink as much as they can. There was a woman, I can't remember when, who died in a water challenge because she basically thinned her blood too much and her body couldn't function anymore.
What's it, hyponatremic or something?
Something like that, yeah.
Or even not to take it that far, but a lot of athletes can dilute their electrolytes by just drinking too much. You drink too much, you actually perform less.
Right.
So, yeah, for sure.
And so I, in the research, came across a documentary called The Sacred Science. And in this documentary, this guy named Nick Polizzi took 8 people down to the Peruvian jungle, and they went through several different ceremonies with ayahuasca. And one guy had cancer, one person had an addiction, another person was dealing with diabetes. So multiple different people from all kinds of different walks of life, all having different ailments that they were trying to cure. And I won't go super deep into that story. If you guys want to watch the documentary or read the book, it's a really, really good read.
What's it called again?
It's called The Sacred Science by Nick Polizzi. And so I watched that documentary, and that was like, okay, there's something here. And that I do believe is when you start feeling the need to research into things like ayahuasca or any type of plant medicines, that is your call. That's your sign. That is basically the plant reaching out for you, saying now is the time.
Well, and that's the beginning of the journey.
That's the beginning of the journey. And, I know Chris said in his interview that the moment he made the decision to go down there, the medicine started working. Yeah. That is 100% true.
And I've heard that through everybody that's been involved in an ayahuasca ceremony can tell you the same thing.
Yeah. So the moment I watched that documentary and then I read the book, because I, like anything, the book is always going to go into more detail than the movie. And as soon as I finished that book, like literally I closed that book, I hopped on my phone, I went to Paititi Institute, which is the center that they go to, and I booked my trip.
Fuck yeah.
And the next day I quit smoking weed because I recognized that if you're going to go and meet with these plant medicine spirits, you need to meet them as you.
Yeah.
Not with anything else in your system, because that's part of having respect.
Which, did you just intuitively know that?
Yeah.
Or was that?
Yeah.
Because like when Tyler did it, they were directed, all right, from this day, from whatever the day is, there's no more of this, there's no more of that. And that's exactly why. Yeah.
So Paititi Institute did say that there's a pretty strict protocol on what you are and are not supposed to ingest within a certain period of time before the ceremonies.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that is just to make sure that there's no contraindications with ayahuasca. Because there are certain medications, SSRIs and things like that you can't combine them. They will not be a good outcome. So that's something to take into consideration. If you are on certain types of medications that you're reliant on, but this is a journey that you want to go through, it's something you're going to have to question on if you're going to be able to go through that uncomfortable time period of not being on those medications to then go and have this experience for the potential of never having to be on those medications again.
Yeah, interesting.
So I went down to Peru fully just focusing on, I'm going to go do an ayahuasca. I'm going to really get into the depths of myself and trying to figure out like what's making me be this way. And so I went down a week early because they do recommend you come down early just to get acclimated to the altitude there. You fly into Cusco, they're at like 9,700 feet. So you're already super high in elevation if, coming from here.
Yeah, we're at sea level.
Yeah. So
you're at base camp of Rainier.
Right. And it's something to get used to. Like if your body's not used to that, it takes time. And so fortunately, my body got acquired to it pretty quickly. And so I went and spent some time with a family that kind of just rents space in their home, hiked up in some ruins and really just got my energy centered in that space. And then went to the 10-day retreat. And first night we do an ayahuasca ceremony, and then the next day was integration, and then we did a San Pedro ceremony, which is a cousin to peyote. It's a type of cactus. And then the next day we did another integration, and then the 2 days after that we did breathwork ceremonies with the plant medicine cacao. And cacao is basically just a ceremonial form of chocolate. The Mayans have used it for a very, very long time to connect with themselves. It's a heart-opening medicine. And those breathwork sessions shattered me.
Whoa.
Those breathwork sessions were more powerful than the ayahuasca and San Pedro ceremonies were. And now I can't say for certain if it's because the ayahuasca and the San Pedro prepped me.
Yeah, that was my question.
But I relived memories in my first breathwork session from 2, 3, and 4 years old.
Whoa.
Like vividly relived them, but relived them from a third person view. So like I got to see myself reacting in this situation. And so the memory that I had when I was 2 years old, and this is a memory my mom has told me before, but having actually relived it, was able to truly feel the power of it. But when I was 2, my mom found me just hysterically bawling in our living room, and took her a really long time to get me to calm down before I could finally articulate. And I just looked up to her and said, I can't remember what heaven looks like. And I remember her, like, as an adult telling me that story, and she's like, I didn't know what to do with that. Like, what do you say to a 2-year-old telling you I can't remember what heaven looks like? But that's when I knew of like, okay, this isn't the only reality. This isn't the only place that we come from. But to then relive that made me realize at how early on my connection to spirit was. Mm-hmm. And then to relive a memory of 3 years old and coming up to my dad saying I wanted to grow my hair out long like my sister. No, only fags and bikers have long hair. And that one comment at how that changed my view of myself and my view of other men. You don't realize how little things like that, when they're told to you, have profound long-term impacts in how I was showing up in the world. Mm-hmm. And so to be able to experience those things, but then feel the tension within my body of what those things were, and the fact that I was still holding on to the energetics from those things. 30 some odd years holding on to that shit. And then with my breath, just letting that out of my body. And that was in the form of tears. It was in the form of my body physically shaking. Like I probably looked like I was having a seizure on the mat. Like so much energy moving. But then afterwards, the lightness that I felt. And even still to this day, none of that weight has come back.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Because it's like, in therapy, they talk about peeling back the onion. But you look at I look at it as like peeling back the onion is in the onion that you'd get from like Blazing Onion or wherever, where it's all just folded out on the plate, but all the onion's still there. So you can peel back the layers to expose other layers. But in breathwork, you peel back those layers and they go in the compost pile.
Okay.
So once you peel back that layer is no longer attached to you.
Shedding shit.
You're literally getting rid of energetic stuff. And like, there's so many people who are wandering around spiritually obese and energetically obese, even though physically they may not be. And for some people, that may actually man itself into physical obesity. Mm-hmm. I mean, you probably know how many people have tried so many different diets and so many different workout routines and can't lose a pound.
Yeah, all of them. Yep.
What if all of that extra weight you're carrying is energetic?
Mm-hmm.
It's just manifesting itself physically in the body. And as soon as you can let go of that energy attached to stress, trauma, things that have happened in your life, all of a sudden you just start dropping that weight and start shedding all of those things, or chronic pain completely disappears.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I dealt with a lot of knee pain from just snowboarding and sports in high school and just construction and just not taking care of my body well. And after the ayahuasca ceremonies and letting go of a lot of stuff, I, till this day, have zero knee pain.
See, bro, I'm telling you, to think that mind, body, and spirit are not connected.
It's idiotic.
Yeah, it's not congruent with how the universe fucking operates.
Yeah.
You know?
And so I came back from Peru a completely different person.
How old were you when you did that again?
30, let's see, it was 2018. So I would have been 34.
Okay.
And I had already, at that point in time, I had already very much been in my spiritual journey. I had traveled to England in 2016 and taken my Reiki master's training. That took me into a whole different realm of discovering myself and discovering things that I needed to change within myself to really truly show up in the world. And I don't use Reiki in terms of like helping other people necessarily with that. I use it much more for a personal practice. Mm-hmm. And now I know why, because breathwork is all about honoring somebody else's innate inner intelligence and what it has for them, whereas Reiki is about channeling energy through yourself. So if I'm giving that energy to somebody else, it's being filtered through me. Whereas in breathwork, it's all you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So there is no filter between you and your higher consciousness. It's just how far do you actually want to go down into it?
Yeah.
And so being able to give that space for people. And so when I got back from Peru, I continued to integrate the things that I learned. And still to this day, I haven't done ayahuasca again. I have done San Pedro again as well. But I'm still integrating things that I learned from those ceremonies. And my breathwork practice is continuing to help more of those things to come out. And I'm now of the belief that once your consciousness recognizes a plane of reality exists, it's always there. It can always tap into that. And so I have had in breathwork practices experiences just like what I had in the ayahuasca ceremony.
Okay.
Because that doorway has been opened.
And now you're just finding a new path to get there. Basically.
Exactly. So it's not necessarily that you have to keep revisiting ayahuasca over and over and over again. It's only if you feel the call that, okay, maybe it's time to go sit with it again. And I'm finally kind of starting to feel that maybe that call.
Yeah.
But unlike last time where I was really searching and trying to find a place, I'm now just being open to when the next opportunity presents itself.
There you go. Yeah, I like that.
And that's part of surrendering to what life has to unfold to you. Because, you know, with the introduction of The Secret that came out years ago, where it's all positive thinking and law of attraction. And if you just think it, it will come to you and, you know, you magnetize what you want. But the reality is if you're not in alignment with what that is that you want, or what it is that you want isn't actually in alignment with what your purpose truly is, it's wasted energy.
Yeah. Well, like one of my buddies always says, the universe doesn't give you what you want.
Yeah.
It gives you what you need.
Right. And that's part of the whole surrendering to the process. Because what if you want to be a millionaire, but your destiny is to be a billionaire?
Uh-huh.
So if you set the limitation at $1 million, you're fucking yourself.
Yep, for sure.
So why shortchange yourself to the process? And the more and more I surrender my life just to the process and just be present in every moment that day, not try to think about, okay, what am I going to do tomorrow? And then the next day, and then the next day. Like I do still have a schedule. I try to be organized because I have other people that I work with, but I don't worry about what's going to happen the next day or how the next day is going to pan out until the next day shows up.
Okay.
Because I can't do anything about tomorrow because tomorrow doesn't exist yet.
Yep.
I can't do anything about yesterday because yesterday is gone.
No, I like that, man. I think more people need to start to arrive at that because kind of like we touched on earlier, but if you're focused on yesterday or you're focused on tomorrow and not living in this moment, you're just creating a bunch of depression or anxiety over coulda, shoulda, woulda's that at this point aren't going to serve you.
Right. Right. And depression, if you break that down, deep rest, that is all depression is. It's a sign that we have worked ourselves too hard and put too much on our plate, and it's time to take a step back. But yet how many people just pop a pill and forget that sign is there for a reason?
Yeah.
And so again, with breathwork, it just helps us to keep more awareness around our body and more awareness around the energies that exist in our body and how we can allow those things to truly flow. And the more we remove those areas of stagnation in our body or limitations or blockages, the more we allow things to actually flow more.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating that it's taken human beings to move so far away from this before we're willing to come back to it.
Yeah.
We're putting robots on fucking Mars, but getting in tune with your own body seems strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny how science wants to do so much research of going out into space and going deep into the ocean and looking at all of these things. And yet where's the journey of self?
Yeah.
Where's the journey into the depths of who we actually are and how we function and how we can continue to evolve to be better and better beings and be more stewards of the planet than just rapists of the planet, right?
Well, I think everybody is on these different teams where they think they have it figured out.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm this is my faith and this is my book and it says this and that. So guess what? We already got it figured out.
Right.
Or you'll have the same thing with atheists or creationists or evolution. It's like everyone's on their team. Everybody thinks that they've got it figured out. So why do we need to delve into that? And it's like, man, you're keeping yourself stuck is what you're doing.
Right. Well, and if you're never open to any other perspectives, and I mentioned this to you previously, but there's almost 8 billion different people living on this planet right now. That means there's almost 8 billion different realities happening simultaneously.
Yeah. That's fucking, we can't comprehend that.
Right. I mean, it's hard to wrap your brain around, but the fact is that we all had different upbringings. We've all had different life experiences. So it's all shifted the lens in which we view the world. Well, part of what we can do in breathwork is remove some of those lenses.
Yeah.
And help to bring us closer and closer to the clarity in which we actually see the world instead of viewing the world from these fogged up lenses that a lot of times other people have placed on us.
For sure. Yeah, always.
And
probably.
that we carry as our own when it wasn't actually ours to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's definitely one of the things that I discovered in Peru was how much stuff I was carrying as mine, but wasn't mine.
Mm-hmm.
I just carried because I thought it was meant to be me, or it was the way I was supposed to show up, or it was the things I was supposed to like because that meant I was this or it meant I was that. But everything that I continually go through in my practices is just to get closer and closer to who I authentically am. And the more I show up in the world authentically me, it gives other people the permission to do the same.
Yeah. So, I mean, it allowed you to use a military term, or we use it in law enforcement too. It's drop your bags.
Yeah.
When you leave the SWAT team, you're dropping your bags, or when you leave the Ranger Regiment, whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So think about that. You're carrying all this stuff. It was time to drop your fucking bags.
Right. And all of that stuff that we're carrying, a lot of times may not even be ours.
Mm-hmm.
If we come from a lineage of people who, a lot of war, or a lot of famine, or a lot of struggle that has happened over time periods, if that energy is never released, it gets passed down from one generation to another, to another, to another.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of stuff that we all carry that comes from previous generations of ourselves that we have no idea.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy, dude.
But so many people in ayahuasca, psilocybin, breathwork, any of these experiences that can basically help put you into an altered state of reality so then you can kind of see the world from a different lens, proves the depths in which we all exist if we allow ourselves to.
Yeah. Fuck yeah, dude.
And that allowing is the thing that a lot of people, especially men, do find challenging going into a breathwork session. Especially, a lot of us have the upbringing of, boys don't cry. You don't feel those emotions. Suck it up. Like, let's keep going.
Yeah, there's a toughness associated with bottling up everything.
Right.
Which is just, it's the opposite of reality.
Yeah.
Which is strange that that's where we arrived I shouldn't say as a species, because I think that's probably an American thing, but it's like, it takes you 40 years to realize it's actually vulnerability is a sign of strength, and vulnerability shows up in the form of tears sometimes.
Right.
But we're told our whole life that crying's for weaklings,
Yeah.
And it's like, I tell my kids all the time, both my jiu-jitsu kids and my own kids, it's like, if something sad happens, cry.
Yeah.
If something scary or something painful happens, you don't get to cry, because now you're using that as a way to just express anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's like, that's where I want you to do a breath exercise and get control of yourself again.
Yeah.
But there's very different things manifesting in different ways. And we have to understand that sometimes that needs to come out in that way.
Right. Well, and there's a saying that I say all the time in sessions is you got to feel it in order to heal it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you never let yourself feel it, you're never going to be able to heal it.
No, that makes sense, man.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to relive an experience. And that's one thing that in somatic breath work, I get people a lot of times that like, I feel like I was sleeping, but like I was here, but I wasn't here. But like, you can't really put words on it, but they definitely like lost time and space.
I did on mine for sure.
And so that's called the yogic trance state. And so what the body's inner intelligence will do is that sometimes if it needs to process through things that will cause more trauma of you consciously processing through it, it will put you into the yogic trance state. So then you can be in this blissful state of oneness while in the background, your subconscious is processing through and removing all of the things that don't actually need to be there.
If they were like monitoring brain waves.
Oh yeah.
Right. Is it similar to being sleeping or being hypnotized, or like what is happening in them? Do they even know?
Yeah.
What's happening in the brain?
So you're entering into different brainwave states, right? So, alpha, beta, delta, theta, right? So when you go into that theta state, that's when you're connecting to that subconscious. So that dream state. Dreams are there as messages for us. And so Carl Jung, from Jungian psychology, he has a book called Man and His Symbols. And it basically talks about all the various different archetypes and symbols that are present in our dreams. And so like, as an example, if you see a car within a dream, well, the car isn't represented as the actual logical car that it is. The car could mean, okay, something is now ready to move, or, we're going from one place to another. So that car is a representation of that thing moving within you. Teeth falling out. That's a random thing that people will have, but that's a symbol of something that you're ready to shed, that you're ready to let go.
Like their own teeth?
Like their own teeth, yeah. So there's all kinds of different things that can come up in your dreams that are kind of symbols if you're willing to look at it objectively.
Yeah.
And when you meet people in your dreams, it's not that specific person, it's that person that you're meeting is just another aspect of you, but are things that you see in that person that you want to adopt within yourself, or things that are in that person that you don't want to be part of yourself.
Yeah.
And so that's where trying to cultivate more awareness around who we are and how we interpret things. So when we go through these types of ceremonies and sessions, we can put more context behind what we kind of experience. But also sometimes so many things can happen that it's ineffable.
Mm-hmm.
We literally cannot put words to the experience. And that is a good opportunity to where it's just time to sit with it for a long period of time and allow that experience to truly integrate itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, having been 4 years, almost 4 years to the dot of going down to Peru, there's still stuff that's popping up for me, still realizations that I have of like, oh, okay, so that's what that meant. Because it just takes time for everything that you go through in, 6 to 8 hour ceremony seems like a long period of time, but in the grand scheme of things, it's just a blip.
Yeah.
It's not that much time, but so much can happen in that period of time that to try and process it through in a day, a week, a year, sometimes isn't possible. And that's where sometimes if we try and rush the process too much, we can just cause more trauma.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, man.
And so the people that keep going to Peru and Costa Rica and keep doing ceremony after ceremony after ceremony, but keep wondering why the same thing keeps popping up, it's because they're not actually taking the time to learn the lesson.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine, and again, I haven't done these ceremonies yet, but I am in April. I'm ready for it. But yeah, I mean, you hear stories like, this is my 80th time. And it's like, is it doing what it's supposed to be doing then?
That's always the question.
Because everything in this world can be, abused or used.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So.
And of course.
And maybe someone does need 80 ceremonies. Who the fuck am I to say? But at the same time, if me personally, if I had to go through this 80 times, I would start to wonder, am I doing this for different reasons?
Yeah.
Or do I just enjoy using this medicine and feeling this way? Like, fuck, who knows?
I've never met a single person who enjoys ayahuasca.
I've heard that from everybody.
It is definitely, it's not a great taste.
Well, Tyler said he liked the taste of it.
Okay, so I liked the taste of it the first ceremony.
Uh-huh.
And then the second ceremony, it didn't taste as well. And the shaman that I sat with was like, the ego will make it continue to taste worse and worse and worse because it recognizes what's going to happen.
Oh, I see.
It recognizes that once the medicine takes hold, it doesn't have control anymore.
So the ego's averse to it.
And that's where also, like, a lot of times, people will choose last minute not to do ceremony because the anxiety and fear and nervousness behind it gets overwhelming.
Yeah.
But that's good. Like, if you are nervous going into it.
If you're not nervous, I would be concerned.
You shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I already have a little bit of nerves.
And that's healthy.
And I remember when I was a 17-year-old kid and I signed up for the military. I remember one thing that I was thinking about. I was like, man, my dad told me that the gas chamber and boot camp is a fucked up experience. I remember thinking that, like, right when I signed up. Dude, it's a meaningless, like, part of training. Like, it's every single soldier does it. So it shouldn't even begin to intimidate you. It's just something we all do. Right. But I remember thinking that. And then fast forward to that day, I remember walking into that gas chamber. I was like, oh, it's about to happen. It's here, and you go in there and they pop the CS grenade and then the drill sergeants rip your mask off. And then you feel like you're dying in there, and it's like, you build these things up in your head, but that's also part of, like, probably a natural protective mechanism.
Yeah.
It's like, if something has the potential to be fucked up, there's a part of your brain that's going to be averse to it. And that's okay, right?
Yeah. It's the natural fight or flight mechanism.
Yeah.
It's recognizing that it's there for a purpose. It's there to keep you safe. But we also have the choice to listen to it or not.
Yeah.
And that is where that willpower and that discipline that is built from having a practice that you do on a regular basis, jujitsu, CrossFit, yoga, breathwork, whatever your practice is, but having something that you do at either every single day or at least multiple times a week religiously, that discipline, I feel, is truly necessary if you really actually want to work with yourself and become a better person.
Yeah.
Because without any discipline, there's no way that you're going to stick to your practices. There's no way that you're going to continue to do work because it's work.
Yeah.
Like, it's called.
And it's like any aspect of work. It doesn't mean if you're building a house, if you're finishing a college degree, like whatever.
Yeah.
Consistency.
Yeah. Consistency is always key.
All right. And we're back. And so for listeners, obviously there's a massive change in audio quality because we had a power outage and we lost the audio up until this point. So the audio has been pulled and from the video cameras, but we're going to move forward with the breath clinic part of this. 2 hours of build up to the actual breath work, but you get the good audio for the breath work portion of it. And like I always tell you guys, if you hear my kids knock on the door or you hear my dogs bark, it's like, hey, I do real life just like everyone else. And sometimes power goes out and we lost the whole audio file up until right now. So I think it's because of probably all that construction they're doing up the street. Most likely. Because the traffic lights were out all afternoon too.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, what is this? We're 2 days later and we're finishing up the podcast with the breathwork portion, but that's a portion I'm excited about. So thanks for coming back, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And especially like for the breathwork portion, the audio is really the important part. Like all the information coming up to it's great information, but for the actual experience, having the better quality audio for the breathwork.
Yeah, we're set. We're all set then. And so, I'll have to look back and see exactly where we got cut off, but I don't remember exactly what we were talking about, but I know, because I remember I looked at the clock and it was right about the 2 hour mark. I was like, all right, I think it's time to go into the breath work. So it all worked out how it's supposed to. Perfect.
Yeah. Well, and at the end of the day, it was a great lesson. We had talked about you having that challenge of like wanting to rein in that anger, right? And control that anger.
Yep.
And what happened? Neither of us got angry.
Yeah.
It just was what it was. And that is, in my opinion, what the constant process of evolving yourself is about. It's not about being perfect, but it's about recognizing the moments where you are doing better.
Yeah.
And giving yourself gratitude for the fact that you are doing better. And that shows change. That shows growth, even if it's small.
Yeah. And then the other side of it is like we talked about, I need to have some type of redundant backup measure because there's not an impossibility of that happening again. Yeah. So just take it as a lesson and move on,
Yeah, exactly. So as we move forward in doing this breathwork practice, and I do want to preface that if you were to choose to want to do like a full breathwork practice, it's going to be an hour and you're going to be able to go much deeper than what you're going to be in 10 or 15 minutes. So this breathwork practice that we're going to go through, basically going to have 2 rounds of clearing. So it'll be 2 songs and then we'll have 1 song of rest and repatterning. So it'll at least give you a little glimpse of what somatic breathwork has to hold. And if it's something that you're interested in continuing to try, I'm going to give you guys a link for a discounted one-on-one session that you guys can book at any point in time. And let's go.
Awesome. And like usual, anything that you provide me, any type of links or contact information, I'll add in the show notes, make it convenient for people to find.
Perfect.
All right. So if we go into this, do you want me right on the mic so people can hear it?
Yes.
Or do you want me to get away from the mic and just let it be what it is?
Well, so you can kind of have your choice. So ideally in somatic breath work, it's going to be done laying down. Now, mainly that's for in an hour, you're not having to worry about your sitting position or your posture or anything like that. But laying down, you can fully go into your experience. For this one, you guys can be sitting down, you can be laying down. That is going to be the most comfortable for this process. So Greg, if you wanted, you can lay down right here, go through the process, and then I'll just guide everybody through that whole process. So within somatic breath work, we're in the first clearing section. You're going to breathe in and out of the mouth without any pauses, deep down into the belly. So it's like, and really trying to work the air with the diaphragm more than with the lungs.
Okay.
So really focusing on bringing it deep, deep down into the belly. That is what is going to enact a lot more of those chemical changes and things like we talked about earlier. Then in the rest and repatterning phase, I'll cue you guys to go ahead and switch to in through the nose and out through the mouth. So still removing pauses, still bringing it deep down into the belly, but we're slowing the breath down and really focusing on the exhale. And that's what's going to trigger that rest side of our nervous system. And really, it's kind of what sets the stage for being able to breathe in new ways of thinking, love, gratitude, different senses and energies within the body after you've spent some time clearing out things.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Yeah. I'm going to turn this and I'm going to lay down. And again, if you're driving,
Stop.
Don't fucking do this.
Yep.
And if you
Take a
crash your
pause.
car and kill someone, we gave you a disclaimer, so that's your problem.
Exactly. So through this process, especially in the clearing phase, you guys might start to feel some tingling sensations come into the body. That may be in the hands, that may be in the feet. Sometimes that can go as far as into the face. Totally normal part of the process. So if you do start to feel those things, you can do a couple of things, keep breathing into it and see what's on the other side of that tingle for you, or slow down the breath a little bit and feel into it a little bit more. Either one is correct. There is no right or wrong or specific way to this process, just focusing on that breath. And again, breathing it deep down into the belly, really focusing on utilizing that diaphragm. So I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit of music playing here. And so you guys kind of start to get comfortable. Slowly breathing into your body, just ever so slightly. No need to have any sort of pattern or any focus. I really just want you to focus on breathing into your body, deep into your belly, and really connecting with your breath, connecting with your body. Feeling present in this moment. And as you continue to connect with your breath, start to breathe in and out of the mouth, carrying the breath deep into the belly. And as you start to get comfortable with that breath pattern, begin to increase the speed ever so slightly. Just slightly faster than you normally would breathe, getting more and more comfortable with the depth of the breath. More and more comfortable with your body. More and more comfortable with this time and space. And as we continue with the breath work, focus in and out of the mouth, deep into the belly. And use the breath to clear the stress. See where the stress lies in your body. And use the breath to clear it out. Use the breath. And see where in your body lies tension. And use the breath like a broom to sweep it out. The breath like a broom to sweep out the stress. What does your body want you to feel that you haven't let it? What what is ready to move through you. Use your breath and let it out. What have you been carrying for far too long? Use your breath to let it go. Use the breath. Use the breath. How does your body want to move that you haven't allowed it? Use the breath and clear it out. Slow it down for our first breath hold. Take a deep breath in and let it all the way out. Take another deep breath in and let it all the way out. And take a deep breath in and hold it at the top and hold it as long as you can. And when you feel ready to take that next breath, connect with your fears. Connect with where fear is holding you back in life. Let's recommit to the breath in and out of the mouth. And use your breath to clear the fear. And use your breath to clear the limitations. That's it. Keep going and try and go a bit deeper. What have you been holding on to that isn't yours? That wasn't yours to begin with? Use the breath and clear it out. Use the breath. What are you finally ready to let go of? Use the breath and let it move through you. Use the breath and clear it out. Slowing it down for another breath hold. Take a deep breath in. Let it all the way out. Take another deep breath in. Let it all the way out. Take a deep breath in. And let that one go too and become completely empty, holding on the exhale. And hold it as long as you can. And when you feel guided to take in that next breath, breathe in the feeling of gratitude. Breathe gratitude into your heart. Breathe in gratitude for the beat of your heart. breathe in gratitude for the miracle that it is to be alive. Breathe in gratitude for your body. Breathe in gratitude for your breath. And breathe in gratitude for all the challenges that you've faced in your life thus far. And breathe gratitude in for overcoming all of them. Gratitude for those that have helped you and those that have hurt you along your path. Gratitude for every event that has made you who you are today. Gratitude for the person you are continually becoming. How much more can you relax into your gratitude? Breathe in gratitude to every cell of your body. And let every cell know how grateful you are. How much more can you relax into that feeling of gratitude? How much more can you relax into yourself? Your body, into this time, into this space. Begin to feel your awareness come back into your body and use it to scan for any new sensations, any new energies, any new lightness that may be present. You may have had some messages or insights come to you. Use the breath to breathe them into your body so you may remember them, so you may embody them, so you may bring them forth into the world. And as you continue to breathe back into yourself, slowly and gently guide yourself onto your side, holding yourself in an embrace of gratitude for the session you just went on. Stay here as long as you feel guided to do so. And whenever you're ready, find yourself in a seated position, bringing yourself back into the present moment. As you begin to come back, take some time with yourself, as it can sometimes take a moment or two for the body to reestablish itself after going through a breathwork session.
right, I'm back.
Welcome back.
Yeah, man. Even in that amount of time, like you said, don't let this be what you take in as a real, authentic experience in somatic breath work.
Yeah.
And like I've told you, you know, we talked about earlier, I've done one. But even in that 10 minutes or whatever it was, I could feel a lot of, at first it was physiological changes. And then towards the end there, I was starting to tap into kind of the emotional side of it.
Yeah.
And I think, obviously, I mean, do you find 10, 15-minute mark is where you can start to get people to tap into that?
Typically, it also, so the one thing that you have working for you is your practices in the sauna, the cold plunge, the breathing that you already do. So you're already very connected with your body in a way a lot of people aren't. So some people who aren't very connected with your body and aren't very connected with their breath, they may find on their first breathwork experience that they didn't actually start jumping in until the second half of the session.
Okay. Yeah.
It might take them that full clearing, and then they get into, so typically how a standard somatic breathwork session works is you have 3 clearing phases and then 3 rest and repatterning phases. So you have equal time in both parts of your nervous system.
Okay.
But again, sometimes it takes people into that like first part of the second half before they actually like tears start flowing forward. And a lot of times it's when I start like cueing people to like breathe love in.
Yeah. A lot of the talk about gratitude.
Yeah.
And I've known you a long time, and I just realized in this moment, I was like, you have the voice for this. It's very calming and nurturing and like, just kind and loving energy behind it, you know? It's cool. It's cool. Like when I was laying there, I was like, I feel like this is a calling that he should be listening to, because I just felt like an overwhelming amount of comfort with that experience.
I really, really appreciate you saying that, because it's, you know, we're always our worst critic, right?
Of course.
So like,
yeah.
Throughout this whole process of stepping into being a breathwork practitioner, it's something that I know I've been meant to do for a long time, but I've allowed the fear and the limiting beliefs and my inner self-doubt and imposter syndrome to kind of play into me dumbing down my own abilities.
Of course.
And because...
And I think that there's a certain amount of that is healthy.
Sure.
Because it forces you to be like, okay, I got to really dial this in. I got to really become a master of this art. Because anyone that thinks like, I mean, something like this, like breath work, right? I bet breath work is very similar to jiu-jitsu, where you can do this for 20 years and still be a student of the game.
You're going to be on your deathbed.
Exactly.
And still be wondering what else is there.
You know, so now that you're, a couple years into this or whatever it is, that's still relatively new in the scheme of things.
Absolutely.
And now here you are guiding others.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, I had imposter syndrome in jiu-jitsu for a long time, even as a black belt, because people are looking to me for answers. And I remember thinking like, man, like there's guys out there that are so much better than me that I don't really feel like I'm the guy. But the thing is, just because there's other people that have a different skill set than you doesn't mean you can't bring value.
Right.
And that's where it's really allowed me to like come to my own as a coach and as a teacher. It's like, don't compare of course there's people that are way better instructors than me, but what value do I bring to people?
Right.
And as soon as you come to terms like, okay, there's a lot of people that I do bring value to, it validates everything that you do.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and I had somebody say this to me when I was in Peru, somebody that was there for the retreat, that him and I kind of hit it off right away. And we were talking about how I wanted to start a YouTube channel to kind of share a lot of the spiritual stuff and all of the things that I've learned. And he's like, well, dude, if you don't, somebody else will. But the problem is that person doesn't have your voice. That person doesn't have that unique perspective that only you can bring to the world, that only your perspective can trigger other people that information.
Yeah.
And it's like you said it a couple of times earlier in our conversation of like, I've never had somebody put it that way, but that's the unique, authentic form of us showing up, that only we can word things in a certain way that will help that person hear what they need to hear to then help them move on.
Yep. And there's someone somewhere out there that needs to hear your message.
Yeah.
And I think that's why people that are in the mindset of abundance, like Rogan says it all the time, every single person should start a podcast.
100%.
And like, he's the top dog of the industry, but because he sees it for what it is, he knows the right message connects to the right person. Like, we should all be sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll tell you this, like, time and space starts to get kind of muddled when you're in these different states, right? And the first breath hold you had me do
disappeared.
It felt like minutes.
Yeah.
And I wasn't hungry for air at all.
Yeah.
And I didn't start breathing again until you instructed me to.
Yeah.
And I remember like through that process, I was like, I think I could go another minute. And I couldn't tell if it'd been 40 seconds or 2.5 minutes.
A minute 33.
Okay.
So typically when doing a group session, and I kind of treated this as a group session since you've got a bunch of listeners at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So if it was a one-on-one session, I would have let you go as long as you can.
Oh, let each individual find their spot.
Yes.
Okay.
But in a group session, I got to stick to kind of the timing of the practice because everybody's going to be in a different spot. And also typically when I'm doing a group, whether that's in person over Zoom, as I'm explaining things, if I call you to do a breath hold and you're not here, you're in your process somewhere else, ignore me. Ignore what I have to say and continue with your process.
Yeah.
Same thing with so the cues that I'm giving is called neuro-linguistic programming, and they're cues that are presented in such a way that it's not going to trigger the conscious mind, but it is enough stimulus to trigger the bridge between the conscious and subconscious mind.
Okay.
And so in somatic breath work, we don't want to be thinking about things. So that's why a lot of times we pick music that doesn't have any words. If it does have words, they're going to be very minimal or they're going to be in another language. So it doesn't trigger you to think of, okay, well, what does this mean?
Yeah.
Right? Like we're trying to remove literal meaning from things and really bring it back into the felt sense of what is actually true and what is actually here.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
And what is actually true for you. And so if some of you maybe heard me say like, okay, what are you carrying that isn't yours? It wasn't even yours to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes from people, parents, society, whatever, placing things on us that we take on as our own truth when it isn't actually our truth. It's just a facade that we feel like we have to show up in the world based on. So
Which is everybody.
Yeah. Right. It's societal conditioning. And for me, what I feel my purpose with breathwork is helping to navigate people back to themselves, back to who they truly authentically are, so then they can show up in the world from their authentic representation.
I can tell you, man, 10, 15 minutes of that. And I'd just done, before you got here, sauna, an ice bath. So like my body was already feeling good. I sat in the sun for 15 or 20 minutes because it's almost gone for the year. So I'm getting it in while I can. But even in addition to those things, like my body just elevated a little bit. And I don't know how to really articulate that, but I just feel lighter. I feel less stressed. Mm-hmm. And not that I felt stressed to start with, but you understand what I'm saying? Like it's kind of like, you can just feel your body releasing and just coming into itself a little bit.
Yeah.
And so for people that are listening, like, dude, 15 minutes of your life to really try and to find something that might benefit you, to not do it is foolish.
Yeah.
So when people are interested in trying jiu-jitsu, I always tell them, you're not going to feel what jiu-jitsu can do for you without committing to 90 days of jiu-jitsu. And that's 2 or 3 days a month for 3 months. At the end of those 90 days, you're going to look back on yourself and be like, wow. What would you say for someone that's interested in looking into breath work? How often, how much? Is it something that you think there should be consistency to, or can you just dabble in it here or there? Or moving forward, what would you recommend?
So it's kind of different for everybody. Everybody carries a different level of trauma and stress within their body. So people who have lived very traumatic lives will need a little bit more breath work. People who haven't lived very traumatic lives, but just deal with a lot of micro stressors of being a parent, working in the modern society, maybe once a month might just be all you need.
Okay.
Typically when I'm starting people on a program, we do 3 sessions once a week, every 2 weeks. And so we basically take 6 weeks to do 3 breathwork sessions. And I found that every other week is enough to allow the body to reset, because a full breathwork session, especially if you're just getting into it, it's a lot on the body. You are basically hitting a hard reset, just like unplugging your computer from the wall. It takes a little bit for that computer to boot back up.
Yeah.
Same thing with our bodies. We're quantum computers, like I've mentioned before. So it takes a little bit.
Which is becoming more and more understood to the point where we might literally be fucking robots. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's like electrically charged, and like how we interface with things, and all of it's bizarre.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is, so like when I cue you to breathe gratitude into every cell of your body, right? So that every cell can feel how grateful you are. You have over, I can't remember the exact number, but it's like trillions of cells in your body.
You don't have the exact number?
It's like 70 trillion or something like that, but there's some specifics on what it is. But all of those cells function for specific things. Some cells are going to work for digestion, some are going to work for rest and repair, some are going to work for energy production, some are going to work for protein synthesis, all kinds of different functions, right? Well, when stressful events happen and we don't process it through in that moment, that gets stored somewhere, because energy cannot be destroyed, nor can it be created. It can only be transmuted or changed to something different.
That's fascinating, because like we talked about earlier, I've heard of actual trauma or stress being held in this part of the body or that part of the body, but there's actual physics behind it.
Yeah. So there's a really good book. I haven't read it. It's on my to read list, but it's called The Body Keeps Score. And it's all about that, about how when trauma happens, we may repair what happened to the body, but because trauma is what happens inside our body, when something happens to us, we don't always fix that internal part of that trauma. And so all of your cells basically are like, well, I have this energy, I need to store it somehow. So now you have cells that are creating this tiny little prison for that energy. And so if you imagine that happens once, twice, 10, 100, 1,000 times throughout your lifetime, now you have all of these cells creating tiny little prisons to hold on to this energy that you don't really need to hold on to anymore, but you're holding on to it because you don't realize that you're holding on to it.
Then they can manifest in different fucking ways.
Then they can manifest themselves as disease physically in the body, but also those cells can no longer help with rest or digestion or protein synthesis.
I see. You're taking them from their original, or, their use.
Yeah. Yeah.
And redirecting them.
So by carrying all this extra baggage, you are basically stopping your own body's abilities to heal yourself.
Yeah.
And so if you can do an hour breath work and drop some of that baggage, so now you can gain cells back that can start produce more energy, that can start to protein synthesis, nutrition uptake, all of these various bodily functions, that's where that feeling of lightness starts to come in.
Your immune system.
Exactly.
Because again, the science shows when you are stressed, you are more likely to get sick.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
You can say the stuff's as crazy as you want, but there's also just some hard truths attached to it.
Right.
Well,
and is it crazy because it's what modern society tells us we shouldn't be believing in?
Of course it is. Yeah.
Or is it crazy in the fact that we forgot things that we've used for thousands of years from ancient civilizations?
Yeah. I wonder when the Western culture,
profit.
Yeah.
That's really what it came down to. Terence McKenna actually talks about it in the book Food for the Gods of, he goes into all of the various different drugs and things that society has used over the lifetime. And it was never referenced to being drugs until modern medicine.
Yeah.
When they created the drugs that no longer represented natural medicine. Instead, this plant does this good thing, so let's synthesize down to that one molecule that actually does it, when it needs everything in that plant to actually function properly.
Yeah.
Like CBD is a fantastic thing, but there's a reason there's full spectrum, because it requires that trace amount of THC to actually fully function in the body the way that it's meant to.
Yeah.
If your body's only uptaking part of it, it's like, okay, this is great, but I'm missing something.
And it still blows my mind that people continuously demonize that. I get, because having a CBD sponsorship, Cured Nutrition, which is an awesome company, I get people that hit me up often. They're like, hey man, is this, if I take the Zen sleep aid, am I going to pop on a piss test? And I always tell people, I'm not going to give you advice that could make or break your career. You got to figure that out. But the other side of it is, it's like, man, you got this cop or this firefighter who's trying to figure out how to be a better version of himself. If he's focusing on building healthy sleep patterns, you know?
Yeah.
No, don't use a plant to do it though. We might get rid of your job.
Right. Now,
So-
see, there's all kinds of other things that can be used as well. So when you start to take that approach of natural medicine versus modern medicine, natural medicine, there's things like valerian root, for example, that you can brew into a tea. You're going to fucking pass out in like 45 minutes if you make it strong enough.
All right, I'm going to try it.
It smells
Yeah.
awful and tastes awful, but you know what? It works.
Yeah.
And like sometimes that's part of like supplements. Like they don't all taste good, but if it does,
Bro,
good
life
for your
isn't
body,
about what tastes yummy.
Exactly.
And that's not just for food.
Right.
That's everything.
Right.
You know? Well, fuck, man. We're considering, it almost feels like we're doing a new podcast,
Yeah,
right? I just want to sit down and talk. But we got 2 hours and 40 minutes on the books. And I think that's, we did the little breathwork clinic. I think it's a good time to wrap this up. So give people, like you said, where to contact you, where to schedule events or classes and all that stuff.
So in the description, you guys will have a link that you can go to my Calendly. It'll be specifically for your podcast. So it'll be only through the link. You guys can't actually see it if you go through my website or things like that. So you have to go through the Endless Endeavor link to be able to get that pricing. But you can book a one-on-one session. I would also love to kind of coordinate maybe at some point in time just doing a group session for just the Endless Endeavor podcast and all of your guys' listeners so you can all breathe together.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I'll hop in on that for sure.
Yeah. And then you can follow me on Instagram at adam.carbary, Carbary, or at Embrace and Expand. That's EMBRACEANDEXPAND. Or embraceandexpand.com is my website. You can book sessions through that as well. I also do wellness coaching, specifically one-on-one with people. I don't take on a ton of clients for that because I like to keep my numbers small so I can really focus my energy with the people that I'm working with.
And then can I give you a shout out on your bus too?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, yeah, go follow them at, what is it?
Soulful Bus Life.
Soulful Bus Life. And you guys have a decent Instagram. What are you, 25,000 or something?
We just hit 28.5.
There you go.
Yeah.
And it's Adam and his wife Rachel who are breaking the societal mold of living 9 to 5, and they bought a bus and they just go explore and live life and do as they choose. And I mean, 30,000 people are watching your journey.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you? That 30,000 people are inspired to want to break that mold and experience that for themselves at some point. And so, yeah, go follow them there. They're doing a cool thing, man.
So before we go, I want to leave you guys with one little thing that you can do every day is the daily breathwork practice.
Okay.
And so you do that in and out of the mouth breath 30 times. Then you do 3 inhales and exhales, holding at the top on the third, and hold it for 30 seconds, a minute, however long you can. Then you go to 30 breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth, and then again 3 deep breaths at the end, holding on the exhale of the third breath. And then when you go to breathe in on that breath, breathe in how you want to show up for the day. And if you do that before you go to bed and you breathe in how you want to show up the next day, and then you do it the next morning, and again, you reaffirm how you want to show up for that day, watch how your day goes.
All right. Fuck yeah. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it for a week.
Yeah.
I'm going to commit to a week of it.
Awesome.
Because I mean, I'm a believer in this stuff. So,
Yeah.
all right, man, I appreciate it. And I look forward to learning more about this stuff with
Awesome.
you.
Thanks for having me on.